Chapter 2205. The 6-foot-long staff in Hao Shuang's hand was engraved with obscure patterns. From afar, it gave off a simple and unadorned feeling. Up close, it gave off an ancient feeling. However, as Hao Shuang's saint origin flowed into the 6-foot-long staff voila! In just an instant, the patterns on the rod seemed to have come to life in an instant, blooming with a golden light that set off the rod as if it had turned into a scorching sun, dazzling and dazzling. A vast and majestic aura swept out from the 6-feet-long rod that was covered in a golden glow, causing most of the people present to feel their hearts palpitate. This is the Dharma staff. When Zi Feng from the fire worship sect cried out in surprise, everyone regained their senses. All of them turned to look at the 6-foot-long rod in Hao Shuang's hand that was glowing with a golden light. For a moment, the 6-foot-long staff in Hao Shuang's hand became the focus of everyone's attention. Dharma staff? Why does it sound so familiar? A golden flame elder of Zoroastrianism frowned and fell into deep thought. However, as soon as he fell into deep thought, he was interrupted by another golden flame elder from the fire worship sect. Isn't the Dharma rod one of the 10 great saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking? Moreover, it's an offensive and defensive super saint weapon. Although the Dharma staff is not as offensive as the super saint weapon, the traceless sword, it's far more powerful than an ordinary 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon. Moreover, it can be used for defense. Its defense is extremely strong. I didn't expect the Dharma staff to be in Hao Shuang's hands. It's over. It's over. Protector Ling Tian doesn't have much chance of winning. Now that Hao Shuang has taken out the super saint weapon, the Dharma staff, there's no doubt about the outcome of this battle. One move to determine the outcome? I really don't know where Protector Ling Tian gets his confidence from. Now that Hao Shuang has taken out the Dharma staff, even if he uses all his strength, I'm afraid he won't be able to block Hao Shuang's attack, right? Since it's one move to determine the outcome, Hao Shuang won't hold back. Protector Ling Tian's life will be in danger if he attacks with the staff. The group of Zoroastrianism Golden Flame Elders and the Vice Hall Masters of the Law Enforcement Hall shook their heads. They all thought that Duan Ling Tian was dead meat. It wasn't that they were trying to boost the morale of others and diminish the morale of their own people. It was just that they couldn't see any hope and could only accept their fate. One move to determine the outcome? The other 4 guardians of the Zoroastrianism and the 2 vice sect leaders of the Zoroastrianism also smiled bitterly when they regained their senses. In the depths of their eyes, there was a deep sense of helplessness. A sense of helplessness rose in their hearts. Just now, when Duan Ling Tian said that he was going to fight Hao Shuang with one move, they were also shocked. If it was a normal fight, Hao Shuang might not have taken Duan Ling Tian's life directly. But if it was a battle to determine the outcome of the battle, Hao Shuang would definitely not hold back in order to play it safe. At that time, Duan Ling Tian would most likely die. Initially, they thought Duan Ling Tian would be doomed if he really decided the outcome with a single move. Only a few people could not help but have a trace of desire in their hearts when they saw how confident Duan Ling Tian was. They longed to see a miracle happen. However, when Hao Shuang took out the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod, the desire in these people's hearts was mercilessly crushed. Hao Shuang was the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint's celestial stage in the Tao martial saint land. If there were no powerhouses at the 9th form of the Saint's celestial stage, nobody would be a match for him. Now, he had taken out the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod. At this moment, only despair remained in the hearts of the people from the Zoroastrianism. Unlike the people from the Zoroastrianism, the people from the Zhuangzi Buddhism were shocked when they saw Hao Shuang taking out the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod. Lord Hao Shuang is going to use the super saint weapon in the battle with Duan Ling Tian? The 2 vice sect leaders of the Zhuangzi Buddhism were dumbfounded. Brother Hao, don't you think you're exaggerating? Is there a need to use the super saint weapon in the battle with Duan Ling Tian? I want to capture him temporarily and take him away to interrogate him about the secrets of the independent space left behind by the 3 eminent devils. The vice sect leader of the Zhuangzi Buddhism was shocked when he saw the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod, in Hao Shuang's hand. He did not want Hao Shuang to kill Duan Lingtian if it was not necessary. Mr. Hao Shuang. At this moment, the Azure Dragon King and the White Tiger King of the Zhuangzi Buddhism also sent Hao Shuang voice transmissions. They were worried Hao Shuang would kill Duan Lingtian with just one move. You don't have to worry about that. Hao Shuang replied in a timely manner. Since it's decided in one move, Duan Lingtian will definitely use his full strength and concentrate all his strength into one attack. I'll use all my strength to defeat his attack. However, after defeating his attack, I'll stop in time and spare his life. After all, if I can pry the secret of the independent space left behind by the three eminent celestials out of him, it'll only be beneficial to me. Hao Shuang's words calmed the vice sect leader of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Azure Dragon King, and the White Tiger King. Dharma Rod? A super saint weapon? Duan Lingtian frowned slightly when he saw Hao Shuang taking out a super saint weapon. This was slightly beyond his expectations. He had heard of the Dharma Rod before and knew it was an offensive and defensive super saint weapon. In terms of offense, although it was not the best among the 10 super saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking, it was still much stronger than a super saint weapon like the Devil Seal Tablet and 1,000 Inscriptions saint weapon. Hao Shuang saw Duan Lingtian's frown and smiled smugly. Duan Lingen, are you surprised I have a super saint weapon as well? Moreover, it's even more useful than your Devil Seal Tablet. I'm a little surprised. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's expression had returned to normal. However, the Sun Saint origin in his body continued to surge. If I, Hao Shuang, were a devil cultivator, Duan Lingtian would have a chance to kill me with the Devil Seal Tablet. Unfortunately, I'm not a devil cultivator. Hao Shuang smiled smugly. His words were filled with sarcasm. The Devil Seal Tablet was effective against devil cultivators, but it was useless against Hao Shuang. You talk too much. Duan Lingtian frowned when he heard Hao Shuang's sarcastic words. Then, he said bluntly, after 3 breaths, we'll decide the victor with one move. As you wish. Hao Shuang's eyes turned cold when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. Saint origin surged from his body as the Dharma Rod in his hand shone brightly. He was preparing to launch his strongest attack after 3 breaths. On the other hand, with a raise of Duan Lingtian's hand, a plain and simple sword appeared in his hand. This sword was none other than the Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword. Jasper Celestial Sword. In the past, when I used you to defeat my enemies, I had to be secretive about it. As the Sun Saint origin in his body surged out and entered the Jasper Celestial Sword, Duan Lingtian looked at the Jasper Celestial Sword and muttered to himself, "Today, I'll show everyone the brilliance of your Celestial Supreme Treasure. I'll show them that Super Saint weapons are nothing in front of a Celestial Supreme Treasure like you." When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, his eyes flashed brilliantly. This beam of light seemed to be able to overshadow everything around it, and it was clearly seen by everyone present. After listening to Duan Lingtian's words, he no longer planned to use the Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword. Naturally, he did not conceal it because he did not want to waste his Sun Saint origin elsewhere. After all, his opponent was Hao Shuang, the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Tao Martial Saint land. Moreover, Hao Shuang had a super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod. If he made a mistake, he would definitely die. For this reason, he had to pour all his Sun Saint origin into the Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword, to unleash his most powerful sword attack. This sword strike was related to his life and everything about him. He had to be cautious. He did not have the time to think about the consequences of exposing the Jasper Celestial Sword. At this moment, he only wanted to unleash his most powerful sword attack to fight with Hao Shuang. They wanted to see if his most powerful sword attack was stronger than Hao Shuang, who was the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Tao Martial Saint land. When Duan Lingtian first took out the Jasper Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Celestial Supreme Treasure, in his hand, its simple appearance did not attract any attention. However, when the Sun Saint origin in his body surged into the Jasper Celestial Sword, the simple Jasper Celestial Sword shone brightly. Initially, it was a golden light that was similar to the color of the sun's Saint origin. However, it soon turned red. Soon after, various colors of light flashed. In the end, the multicolored lights merged into one and transformed into a condensed and dusky energy that twirled around the jasper celestial sword. Among them, tiny bolts of gray lightning were pulsating rhythmically, like tiny gray snakes slithering around the jasper celestial sword. At the same time, a sharp and destructive aura swept out from the jasper celestial sword in Duan Lingtian's hand. Many people present on the scene felt chills running up their spines. Their hearts skipped a beat as they narrowed their eyes. Before they had the time to react, 3 breaths of time had already quietly passed. Ha! When the time was up, Hao Shuang let out a thunderous roar that was deafening to the ears. Bang! The air trembled as Hao Shuang used the force to fly toward Duan Lingtian. Chapter 2206. In fact, Hao Shuang had also noticed the destructive aura surging out of Duan Lingtian's jasper celestial sword. However, he did not have the time to feel how terrifying the aura was. This was because the 3 breaths were up. As for his power, it was already fully charged. It was time to make his move. Boom! Rumble! A series of thunderous noises reverberated in the air. Hao Shuang wielded the Super Saint weapon, the Dharma Rod, as he charged forward. In just a blink of an eye, he had covered more than half of the distance between him and Duan Lingtian. Suddenly he came to a halt. Hao Shuang let out a beast-like roar as the saint origin in his body skyrocketed. His entire body began to swell strangely. In just a blink of an eye, he had transformed into a 3-meter-tall giant. Hao Shuang, who had transformed into a 3-meter-tall giant, looked like a King Kong. His muscles bulged and most of his robe was torn apart. His head of snow-white hair stood on end, like sharp needles shooting into the sky. At the same time, the golden glow on the Dharma rod in Hao Shuang's hand grew even brighter. In just a blink of an eye, it seemed to have transformed into a sky-propping pillar that exuded a terrifying aura. The rolling energy in it seemed to be earth-shattering. In an instant, the void around Hao Shuang trembled. The air seemed to have frozen at this moment. The energy in Hao Shuang's body and the Dharma rod's energy caused a clear and ear-piercing sound of friction to appear in the air. Duanling, take this? Hao Shuang, who seemed to have transformed into a King Kong, suddenly roared and took a step forward. When his foot landed, it was as if a huge mountain had collapsed. When his foot landed, ripples appeared in the void and rapidly spread out in all directions. It was as if a huge rock had been smashed into a calm lake without any warning, causing waves of ripples to appear. At the same time, the 3-meter-tall Hao Shuang's Saint Qi skyrocketed. It was as if he had transformed into a deity. He suddenly raised the Dharma rod, the Super Saint weapon in his hand, and smashed it at the purple figure standing in the void in front of him. The purple figure was none other than Duan Lingtian. Boom! Rumble! Hao Shuang's cudgel strike not only contained a powerful offensive divine ability, but also the profundity of the cudgel martial arts. It looked simple, as if it was just a casual wave, but in reality, it was an attack that he had unleashed with all his might. Hao Shuang's attack not only contained his full strength, but it also contained the full power of the Super Saint weapon, the Dharma rod. As soon as it was thrown out, it was earth-shattering. Wherever the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Rod, passed, the void would tremble. It was like a thin piece of paper being baptized by the wind, as if it could be torn apart at any time. The rod that seemed to be able to shatter the heavens was accompanied by waves of terrifying destructive aura as it smashed toward Duan Lingtian. At this moment, the staff that descended from the sky gave Duan Lingtian a feeling as though Mount Tai was pressing down on him. It was as though he would be mercilessly smashed into a meat patty if he was slightly careless. Boom, 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 boom. Like a bolt of lightning descending, the rod strike that shook the heavens tore through the sky and descended towards Duan Lingtian, and it gave rise to waves of explosive sounds that were like exploding thunder as it approached menacingly. And at this most critical moment, in a flash of lightning, Duan Lingtian finally made his move. Sword-wielding art. Faced with Hao Shuang's attack, Duan Lingtian's celestial supreme treasure, the Jasper celestial sword, finally flew out of his hand after devouring Hao Shuang's sun saint origin. Swoosh! A short-lived sword cry rang in the air as a sword ray flashed in the air. At this moment, Duan Lingtian felt as though his body had been emptied. He was on the verge of collapsing. After recovering a little bit of his saint origin, he barely managed to stabilize himself. However, his face turned pale in just a blink of an eye. At this moment, no one was paying attention to Duan Lingtian. Most of the people present on the scene were looking at the Dharma rod in Hao Shuang's hand that was descending like a thunderbolt. This was the only thing they could do. This was because they could not catch a trace of the extraordinary-looking sword that had left Duan Lingtian's hand. It was as though the sword had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a short-lived sword cry by their ears. How fast? Only a few powerhouses at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage such as Zi Feng from the Zoroastrianism, the Azure Dragon King, and the White Tiger King from the Zhuangzi Buddhism managed to catch a glimpse of the sword ray. At this moment, although they barely managed to catch a glimpse of the sword light, they did not have the time to express their shock and astonishment. This was because everything happened in a split second. How's this possible? When the Jasper celestial sword flew out of Duan Lingtian's hand, it transformed into a sword ray that appeared in front of Hao Shuang's eyes. Horror and disbelief could be seen in his eyes. The reason he reacted this way was because the Jasper celestial sword was too fast. It was ridiculously fast. That speed was much faster than the speed at which he was attacking at the moment. If the saint origin in his body was close to the saint origin of a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, however, the speed of the sword ray before his eyes was close to the speed of a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. In fact, it was almost as fast as a powerhouse who had just broken through to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage and had not stabilized his cultivation base. It all depends on this sword ray to see if I can escape this calamity. Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly when he saw the Jasper celestial sword flying out of his hand. He had used all his strength in this sword ray. This was his strongest sword ray. Swoosh! The Jasper celestial sword that had absorbed Duan Lingtian's sun saint origin flew out of Duan Lingtian's hand like a wild horse that had escaped from its reins. His speed was so fast that it was almost shocking. In just a blink of an eye, the Jasper celestial sword was already close to the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod, that Hao Shuang was holding. After a fleeting sword light flashed, it continued to attack the Dharma rod in a menacing manner. Swoosh! The Jasper celestial sword seemed to have merged with the void. It did not disturb the void at all. In fact, this was because the Jasper celestial sword was too fast. It was so fast that the void did not have time to react. Chi! Along with a series of clear and soft noises, the sword gleam on the tip of the Jasper celestial sword collided with the golden gleam that was wreaking havoc around the Dharma rod and began to fight. And this initial confrontation was also the final calm before the storm. The sword ray from the Jasper celestial sword did not seem to be obstructed at all. It easily penetrated the golden ray from the Dharma rod and landed on the Dharma rod. Suddenly, clang! Rip! An earth-shattering sound of metal colliding reverberated in the air, followed by the sound of something being torn apart. When the Jasper celestial sword landed on the Dharma rod, it unleashed a destructive force that seemed to be able to destroy the world. When the Dharma rod was sent flying, it also tore off Hao Shuang's arm that was holding the Dharma rod, leaving a bloody wound on Hao Shuang's shoulder. It was a ghastly sight. After the Dharma rod and the arm that held it left Hao Shuang's body, it shot off into the distance like an arrow. Its speed was so fast that it appeared in front of everyone's eyes for a fleeting moment. It was not much slower than the speed of the Jasper celestial sword. The Jasper celestial sword unleashed a destructive force that knocked away the Dharma rod and tore Hao Shuang's arm off, severely injuring Hao Shuang. All of this happened in a blink of an eye. After that, the Jasper celestial sword slowed down a little. However, it continued to fly toward Hao Shuang like a bolt of lightning. This time, the Jasper celestial sword's target was between Hao Shuang's eyebrows. It looked as though it would only stop after Hao Shuang was dead. When Hao Shuang's arm was torn off, He felt as though a bucket of cold water had been poured on him. He shuddered and regained his senses. *T. When Hao Shuang saw the sword ray that appeared for a brief moment and locked onto his eyebrows, it seemed as though it would not stop until he was dead. His expression changed again and again. Then he instinctively screamed in fear. In the next moment, before the jasper celestial sword could pierce through Hao Shuang's eyebrows, whoosh! At the same time, a humanoid silhouette emerged from Hao Shuang's body. It was a shrunken version of Hao Shuang. As soon as the shrunken Hao Shuang appeared, he fled into the distance at an unbelievable speed. He left behind a few words as he fled. He said, "Zhuangzi Buddhism. Zoroastrianism. I, Hao Shuang, will remember this grudge." As soon as the words left his mouth, the shrunken Hao Shuang's silhouette disappeared without a trace. Spurt! At the same time, the jasper celestial sword pierced through Hao Shuang's eyebrows, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Soul detachment? Although it seemed as though the jasper celestial sword had killed Hao Shuang, Duan Lingtian knew that Hao Shuang's soul had escaped from Hao Shuang's body. Before the jasper celestial sword killed Hao Shuang's soul had escaped from his body and disappeared into the distance at an extremely fast speed. The jasper celestial sword had only killed Hao Shuang's soulless body. The eighth form of the Saint Celestial stage was also known as the soul detachment form. At this stage, as long as a powerhouse at the eighth form of the Saint Celestial stage or above wanted to, they could detach their soul from their body at any time. Chapter 2207. Unfortunately, my Sun Saint origin is almost depleted, so I can't chase after Hao Shuang's soul. Moreover, my soul is only at the sixth form of the Saint Celestial stage, so I can't use my soul attack to chase after Hao Shuang's soul. Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly when he saw Hao Shuang's soul escaping. It was not that he did not want to kill Hao Shuang, but there was nothing he could do. After Hao Shuang used the soul-detaching technique that was unique to powerhouses at or above the eighth form of the Saint Celestial stage, his soul's speed was comparable to an ordinary powerhouse at the eighth form of the Saint Celestial stage. However, based on Hao Shuang's words before he escaped, it seems like he hates Zhuangzi Buddhism as well. Duan Lingtian's expression turned strange when he recalled Hao Shuang's words. Based on his tone, it seems like he hates Zhuangzi Buddhism more than Zoroastrianism. Duan Lingtian could understand why Hao Shuang was acting this way. After all, Hao Shuang was here because he had accepted Zhuangzi Buddhism's invitation. However, Hao Shuang had lost his body because of Zhuangzi Buddhism's invitation. His soul had left his body and was forced to flee. Now that his body was dead, his soul could no longer possess it. He could only steal another person's body or reconstruct his own. Compared to stealing another person's body, it was better to reconstruct his own body since that was the only way he could regain his strength. Naturally, it would take a long time to reconstruct his own body. In any case, Hao Shuang had accepted Zhuangzi Buddhism's offer to help, but he ended up going for wool and coming home shorn. This was something he did not expect even in his wildest dreams. Hao Shuang must hate Zhuangzi Buddhism to the core. He must hate Zhuangzi Buddhism for inviting him to help before he figured out my strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. Putting himself in Hao Shuang's shoes, Duan Lingtian could understand Hao Shuang's feelings. If Hao Shuang had known that he had such strength, he would not have appeared here even if Zhuangzi Buddhism had given him so many benefits. However, even I didn't expect that the Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword, would be able to unleash such a powerful attack when I infused it with my Sun Saint origin that was enhanced by the elementary devouring tactic. When Duan Lingtian recalled how the Jasper Celestial Sword easily destroyed Hao Shuang's attack and knocked away the super sacred artifact, the Dharma Rod, he could not help but feel slightly shocked. One had to know that even before he made his move, he wasn't sure what the outcome would be. After all, Hao Shuang was the strongest person below the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Tao Martial Saint land. Moreover, he possessed the Dharma Rod, the super saint weapon. If he unleashed his full strength, he would be invincible among those below the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage. For this reason, Duan Lingtian did not hesitate to reveal his Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword, in front of everyone. He was not certain if his attack would be able to match Hao Shuang's full strength. At that time, he felt slightly anxious. When the results came out, he was shocked, but at the same time, he knew that he had been overthinking things. If he was not there, Hao Shuang's attack would be considered invincible among those below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. However, compared to his attack, even Hao Shuang's full strength would pale in comparison. Actually, the power contained in my attack was not much different from the power contained in his attack. However, at that level of power, the difference of a hair's breadth is like 1,000 miles. That's why he was defeated so miserably. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, he could not help but feel relieved. If I didn't inject all my Sun Saint origin into the Jasper Celestial Sword and used a portion of my Sun Saint origin to cast the Universe Ruler's divine ability, the Universe Teleportation, or to form the 10,000 Swords territory to conceal the Jasper Celestial Sword's attack, the Jasper Celestial Sword's attack might not be comparable to Hao Shuang's full-strength attack. If that's the case, the outcome would have been reversed. I would have been the one who was defeated or killed. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, he broke out in cold sweat. He suddenly felt it was a wise decision to risk exposing his celestial supreme treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword, to fight with Hao Shuang. Even if he had to expose the Jasper Celestial Sword, it was worth it. After all, he had saved his life. Thoughts flashed through Duan Lingtian's mind as he thought of one idea after another. The people present on the scene finally regained their senses. Everyone present on the scene was shocked by what they had seen. Many people even wondered if they were dreaming. There were even some who couldn't help but pinch their own thighs and slap themselves to make sure that they weren't dreaming. One move to determine the outcome. This was what Duan Lingtian, the guardian of Zoroastrianism, had suggested to Hao Shuang, the sectless cultivator who was ranked 5th on the Supreme Saint ranking. Hao Shuang was widely acknowledged as the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Dao Martial Saint land. Moreover, he possessed the Dharma Rod, the Super Saint weapon. If he unleashed his full strength, it would definitely be the strongest attack below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. This was what everyone present on the scene thought as well. When Hao Shuang made his move, they were certain Duan Lingtian would either be killed or severely injured. However, the outcome was like a joke to them. At the most critical moment, Duan Lingtian had used his sword-wielding technique and bestowed it with a destructive force. Not only did he send Hao Shuang's Super Saint weapon, the Dharma Rod, flying, but he had also killed Hao Shuang's body. In the end, Hao Shuang was forced to use the soul-detaching technique that was unique to powerhouses at or above the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage to abandon his body and escape. At that time, everyone was shocked. Although Hao Shuang had left behind a threat before he escaped, it did not bring them back to their senses. This was because this was the strongest shock they had ever experienced in their lives, the most inconceivable shock, the most unbelievable shock. When everyone regained their senses, they turned to look at Duan Lingtian in unison. Their eyes and faces were filled with shock and disbelief. Duan Lingtian finally spoke. Everyone from the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect. Duan Lingtian looked at the people from the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect and said calmly, "Since the devil clans from the land of exile could invade the upper province at any time, I didn't want to see the humans lose any more powerhouses. That's why I only destroyed Hao Shuang's body to teach him a lesson. I didn't destroy his soul. I don't think any of you have any objections to this, right?" After all, when he left, it seemed like he hated the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect very much. After he recovers, I'm sure he'll seek revenge on the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect. A hint of mockery could be seen in Duan Lingtian's eyes when he spoke. The faces of the people from the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect turned pale when they heard Duan Lingtian's words. This was especially so for the sect leader of the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect and the 2 kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect. They were puzzled why Duan Lingtian did not seize the opportunity to destroy Hao Shuang's soul. After all, with the strength that Duan Lingtian had displayed previously, it would not be difficult for him to destroy Hao Shuang's soul if he made another move. However, when they heard Duan Lingtian's words, they were stunned. At this moment, they realized Duan Lingtian had done this on purpose. He did not destroy Hao Shuang's soul on purpose so that Hao Shuang could seek revenge on the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect after he recovered. Duan Lingtian wanted to kill Hao Shuang with a borrowed knife. They did not believe Duan Lingtian when he said that he had held back because the Devil clan was about to invade the upper province. Why did he kill one of the 4 kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect, the Golden Lion King, Siakong Sun, if he did not want the humans to lose any more powerhouses because the Devil clan was about to invade the upper province? Guardian Ling Tian, this is... The people from the Zoroastrianism sect could not help but smile when they heard Duan Lingtian's words to the people from the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect. Their understanding of Duan Lingtian was similar to that of the people from the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect. They felt that Duan Lingtian did not kill Hao Shuang on purpose so that Hao Shuang could seek revenge on the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect in the future. However, judging from Hao Shuang's shout when he left, he was not only targeting Zhuangzi Buddhism, but also Zoroastrianism. The 2 deputy sect leaders of Zoroastrianism furrowed their brows in dissatisfaction. Guardian Ling Tian's decision is inappropriate. If Hao Shuang makes a comeback in the future, I'm afraid he won't only target Zhuangzi Buddhism, but also Zoroastrianism. However, even though they were unhappy that Duan Lingtian had intentionally let Hao Shuang go, they did not dare to say anything. They all knew in their hearts, after today's battle, Guardian Ling Tian from the Zoroastrianism would definitely become famous in the Dao martial saint land. Moreover, he would replace Hao Shuang and become the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Dao martial saint land. How could they question the actions of such an existence? After today, even the sect leader of Zoroastrianism would treat Ling Tian differently. Let alone them. However, whether it was the people from the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect or the people from the Zoroastrianism sect, they were unaware that this was not the truth. The reason Duan Lingtian did not chase after Hao Shuang's soul was because he wanted to seize the opportunity to kill Hao Shuang. It was not because he was worried that the Devil clans would invade the upper province and he did not want the humans to lose any more powerhouses. It was not because he wanted to spare Hao Shuang's life so that Hao Shuang could seek revenge on Zhuangzi Buddhism sect in the future. It was because Duan Lingtian was at his limit. Right now, he was like an arrow at the end of its flight. He no longer had the strength to chase after Hao Shuang's soul and kill him. Chapter 2208. Naturally, it was not difficult for Duan Lingtian to guess what Zhuangzi Buddhism and the others were thinking. This was precisely his objective. He wanted to make Zhuangzi Buddhism and the others think that he did not kill Hao Shuang on purpose so that Hao Shuang could escape with his soul detachment technique. He did not want to expose the fact that he was an arrow at the end of its flight. After all, if this matter was exposed, Zhuangzi Buddhism and the others would act recklessly. At that time, the Zoroastrianism group would not be able to protect him. He would only be taken away by Zhuangzi Buddhism and the others. This was not something he wanted to see. At some point, the celestial supreme treasure, the Jasper celestial sword, had returned to Duan Lingtian's hand. At this moment, Duan Lingtian had exhausted most of the Sun Saint origin that he had infused into the Jasper celestial sword. Due to this reason, he no longer had the strength to chase after Hao Shuang's soul. However, even though there was only a tiny bit of energy left in the Jasper celestial sword, it was still emitting a murky sword chi that was filled with a destructive aura. It was as though it could incinerate everything. Duan Lingtian looked at Duan Lingtian who was standing with the sword in his hand. He could feel the destructive aura emanating from the sword in Duan Lingtian's hand. Duan Ling, don't you dare do anything rash. The sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism's expression changed drastically when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. If you dare to make a move on us, the supreme elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism will personally take revenge on Zoroastrianism in the future. You better think carefully before you act. Sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism used the supreme elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, Lang Qianjin, to threaten Duan Lingtian. He wanted to intimidate Duan Lingtian. Although the Azure Dragon King and the White Tiger King from Zhuangzi Buddhism did not say anything, their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at Duan Lingtian. Their eyes were filled with fear when they looked at the sword in Duan Lingtian's hand. It was obvious to them. The reason Duan Lingtian's attack was so powerful was because of the sword. This sword gave them a feeling that it was even more terrifying than a super saint weapon. They were certain that the sword Saint Origin. This sword was a sword saint weapon was more terrifying than any of the super saint weapons on the 10 great saint rankings. Perhaps it was not a sword saint weapon. Duan Lingtian managed to survive in the independent space left behind by the 3 eminent devils. Not only that, but his strength has also improved tremendously. He must have obtained this sword from there. This sword is most likely from the land of exile. It's a demonic sword that's even more terrifying than a super saint weapon that was forged by a demonic overlord. In the end, it was brought to the Dao Martial Saint land by the 3 devil cultivators and was obtained by Duan Lingtian. Apart from the 2 Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism and the vice sect leaders of Zhuangzi Buddhism shared the same thoughts. Even the people from Zoroastrianism shared the same thoughts. The sword in their guardian Lingtian's hand gave them a feeling, and the power it displayed had completely surpassed the super saint weapon that they knew. Even the 9-cloud sword and the traceless sword, 2 of the super saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking, were not as powerful as the sword. What if I don't plan to do so? Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes when he heard the threat from the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism. His eyes flashed coldly as killing intent rose from his body. The Jasper celestial sword emitted a destructive aura, causing the expressions of Zhuangzi Buddhism and the others to change drastically. They did not expect Duan Lingtian, the guardian of Zoroastrianism, to be so unpredictable. He was still filled with killing intent even after their sect leader had threatened him with the Supreme Elder. Guardian Lingtian. The 2 vice sect leaders of Zoroastrianism cried out anxiously. They were worried Guardian Lingtian would kill all the people from Zoroastrianism in a fit of rage. They could tell from how Duan Lingtian managed to kill Hao Shuang's body with a single strike and forced Hao Shuang to abandon his body and soul to escape. They could tell Guardian Lingtian was strong enough to kill all the people from Zhuangzi Buddhism. Even the 4 guardians of Zoroastrianism could not help but send a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. Guardian Lingtian, I know you're furious. However, you can't kill these people from Zhuangzi Buddhism. If you kill them, you'll infuriate the Supreme Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism. He won't hesitate to invade our Zoroastrianism. Guardian Lingtian, the Supreme Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, is a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint's celestial stage. If he invades our Zoroastrianism, the people from Zoroastrianism will be wiped out. Although Lord Sect Leader is strong, it's impossible for him to protect everyone from Zoroastrianism. That's right, Guardian Lingtian. At that time, even you would be in danger. Duan Lingtian almost burst out laughing when he heard the 4 guardians of Zoroastrianism trying to dissuade him. At the same time, he was secretly impressed by his acting skills. With my acting skills, if I was in the entertainment industry on Earth in my previous life, it wouldn't be a problem for me to win the Best Actor award. Duan Lingtian looked at the people from Zhuangzi Buddhism coldly and said in a cold voice, I won't kill all of you today. However, you'll have to pay for what you've done today. I'm not asking for much. Sect leader Duan Lingtian of Zhuangzi Buddhism, destroy one of your arms. After that, all of you can scram. Duan Lingtian's voice became colder and colder as he spoke. It felt as though winter had arrived. Sect leader Duan Lingtian of Zhuangzi Buddhism's expression changed drastically when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. Rip. However, he was still a sect leader after all. For the sake of the bigger picture, he decisively extended his right hand and tore his left arm off before destroying it. From then on, it was impossible for him to reattach his left arm. Sect leader. The Violet Dragon King and the White Tiger King's expressions changed drastically. Although they were furious and humiliated, they did not have the courage to make a move in front of Duan Lingtian. The scene of Duan Lingtian defeating Hao Shuang with a single strike was still vivid in their minds. Such a powerhouse was not someone they could afford to offend. Lord Sect Leader. The 2 vice sect leaders of Zhuangzi Buddhism cried out in grief. They felt extremely humiliated, but they did not dare to make a move. Guardian Lingtian. Are you satisfied now? Sect leader Duan Lingtian of Zhuangzi Buddhism asked in a deep voice as he looked at Duan Lingtian with a ferocious expression. His eyes were filled with rage. Scram! Hurry up! I don't want to regret this. Duan Lingtian frowned impatiently and waved his hand reluctantly. Zhuangzi Buddhism and the others felt as though a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. They turned around and left. The two great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism even brought along one vice sect leader each to ensure they could leave this place as soon as possible. They were worried Duan Lingtian would regret his decision. In just a blink of an eye, Zhuangzi Buddhism and the others had disappeared from their sight. The high-ranking officials of Zhuangzi Buddhism sighed in relief when they saw this. They were worried Lingtian, the leader of Zoroastrianism, would kill Zhuangzi Buddhism and the others in a fit of rage. Guardian Lingtian, although I knew you're stronger than me, I didn't expect you to be so much stronger than me. Hao Shuang is ranked 5th on the Supreme Saint ranking, and he's widely acknowledged as the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. However, he couldn't even withstand a single strike from you. Zifeng exclaimed as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Guardian Lingtian, you're really good at hiding your strength. Qinghua smiled bitterly as he looked at Duan Lingtian. He was so embarrassed that he wanted to dig a hole in the ground and hide in it when he recalled how he wanted to take Duan Lingtian as his disciple. Guardian Lingtian, I, Leng Ying, rarely submit to anyone. Even if that person is stronger than me, I'll submit to you from today onward. Leng Ying had a respectful expression on his face when he looked at Duan Lingtian again. When the new Supreme Saint ranking is released, Guardian Lingtian will replace Hao Shuang and be ranked 5th on the Supreme Saint ranking. Moreover, he'll be widely acknowledged as the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. The moment Hong Yun's words left her mouth, the remaining high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism looked at Duan Lingtian respectfully. Even the sanctum leaders of White Tiger Sanctum and Azure Dragon Sanctum who had conflicts with Duan Lingtian in the past were filled with respect when they looked at Duan Lingtian. The strength that Duan Lingtian had displayed had completely shocked them. Ranked 5th on the Supreme Saint ranking? The strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Although Duan Lingtian was calm, he could not help but feel excited when he heard Hong Yun's words. Guardian Lingtian, your sword. Zifeng could not help but ask when the four guardians of Zoroastrianism were looking at the Jasper celestial sword in Duan Lingtian's hand. A voice suddenly rang in Duan Lingtian's ears. It was none other than Hua Lao's voice. Take your wife and daughter away from Zoroastrianism before the sect leader of Zoroastrianism returns. Hua Lao's reminder jolted Duan Lingtian back to his senses. That was right. Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, was still fighting fiercely with Lang Qianjin, the supreme elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism. He would not be able to return anytime soon. This was the best time for Duan Lingtian to rescue Ke and his daughter. Hua Lao, thank you. After thanking Hua Lao, Duan Lingtian noticed the gazes on the Jasper celestial sword in his hand. An idea flashed in his mind as he thought of a way to send the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism away from the Zoroastrianism's base. 4 guardians, vice sect leader, elders, and vice hall masters. Duan Lingtian swept his gaze across the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism and said, Hao Shuang's super saint weapon, the Dharma rod, is currently lost somewhere. I remember Hao Shuang's soul didn't flee in the direction where the Dharma rod was lost. Since I'm in a good mood today, why don't I play a game with all of you? Chapter 2209. Even a Golden Flame Elder would pose a threat to Duan Lingtian among the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism present. Even if he consumed some pills to recover some of his saint energy, he would only be able to wield the strength of a Golden Flame Elder for a short period of time. While he was rescuing Ke and her daughter, even if 1 or 2 Golden Flame Elders tried to stop him, it would be a huge problem for him. Therefore, he had to think of a way to lure them away from Zoroastrianism so that they would not ruin his plan. Coincidentally, there was a way for him to prevent the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism from returning to the Zoroastrianism's base for a short period of time. It was the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod. The Dharma rod had flown away with Hao Shuang's severed arm to some unknown location. When Hao Shuang fled, he did not flee in that direction. Therefore, Duan Lingtian was using it as bait to lure the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism to look for it. The super saint weapon, the Dharma rod, belongs to whoever finds it? Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism, including the four guardians of Zoroastrianism, began to breathe rapidly. The Dharma rod could be considered as Duan Lingtian's spoils of war. For this reason, Duan Lingtian had the right to decide what to do with it. Now that Duan Lingtian had announced that he was going to use it as a reward, how could the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism not be tempted? Were they not shocked? Guardian Lingtian, are you serious? Lung Ying asked solemnly as he looked at Duan Lingtian. His eyes were shining brightly like two dazzling stars in the night sky. Of course. Duan Lingtian nodded with a smile. I won't joke in front of so many people. But are all of you not interested? 10 breaths. I've already started the countdown. After 10 breaths, if I find the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod, you won't be able to get it. Duan Lingtian said mockingly when he saw that the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism did not make a move. As soon as Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, let's go. The Dharma rod is mine. It's mine. The group of high-ranking officials from the fire worship sect made their move in the direction where the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod, had flown to. All of them wanted to be the first to find the Dharma rod. Even the four great guardians of the fire worship sect had made their move. Moreover, they were leading the way. Among them, Protector Zifeng's cultivation was the highest, his strength was the strongest, and his speed was the fastest. The super saint weapon, the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod to super saint weapon, to the super saint rod. It had to be said that no one could resist the benefit that Duan Lingtian had given them. What? After the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism disappeared, Duan Lingtian's body trembled violently. His face turned green and white as he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. This mouthful of congested blood came from his stubbornness. He had endured it for a long time. Now that there was no one around, he did not have to hold it in anymore. While they're looking for the Dharma rod, it's time for me to bring Kerr and her mother away from Zoroastrianism. After taking out a healing pill and a pill to restore his Saint Chi, Duan Lingtian rushed toward the Zoroastrianism's base as fast as he could. His destination was the holy land of Zoroastrianism. The sect leader of Zoroastrianism cultivated there. At this moment, Kerr and her mother were inside. Although the direction of Hao Shuang's soul is different from the direction of the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod, with the master recognition bond between Hao Shuang and the Dharma rod, he'll definitely be able to locate the Dharma rod in a short time. As the possessor of the super saint weapon, the Devil Seal tablet, Duan Lingtian knew about the connection between a person and the super saint weapon after it had acknowledged him as its master. At this moment, Hao Shuang's soul had most likely found the super saint weapon, the Dharma rod. Even if the high-ranking officials of Zoroastrianism were to search for it, it would be futile. However, the soul of a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the soul-detaching form, is able to exist in heaven and earth without any restrictions after using the soul-detaching technique. It's as good as having an extra life. When Duan Lingtian was on his way to the sect leader of Zoroastrianism's cultivation place, he could not help but feel shocked when he recalled how Hao Shuang's soul had abandoned his body and fled. At that moment, all the energy in the Jasper Celestial Sword had been transferred to Hao Shuang's body. For this reason, after killing Hao Shuang's body, he could only watch as Hao Shuang's soul fled. He could not give chase. Otherwise, he would not have allowed Hao Shuang to live. As the saying went, if you cut the weeds without removing the roots, they'll grow again when the spring breeze blows. As Duan Lingtian made his way back, the Sun Saint origin in his body gradually recovered. His speed increased as well. Soon after, he arrived in the sky above the White Tiger Sanctum. It's Lingtian, Guardian Duan Lingtian. As soon as Duan Lingtian appeared in the sky above the White Tiger Sanctum, he was discovered by the patrolling elders in the White Tiger Sanctum. Naturally, They did not dare to stop Duan Lingtian like they did when he first returned to Zoroastrianism. Put aside the fact that Duan Lingtian's identity was no longer the same as before since he could move freely in the sky above the White Tiger Sanctum, just his strength alone was enough to make them flinch. They did not dare to provoke him. Guardian Lingtian, the person involved, has returned. Does this mean the people from the Zhuangzi Buddhism have retreated? Many of the elders in the White Tiger Sanctum thought to themselves when they saw Duan Lingtian had returned. Soon after, news of Duan Lingtian's return spread throughout the White Tiger Sanctum and caused a commotion. Guardian Lingtian has returned? Does this mean the Supreme Elder did not manage to gain anything from the Zhuangzi Buddhism even though he personally made a move? Lord Sect Leader is now a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. It's only natural that he's not afraid of Supreme Elder Zhuangzi Buddhism. Everyone in the White Tiger Sanctum was discussing among themselves. Duan Lingtian had also returned to the saint land of Zoroastrianism. He immediately soared into the sky and arrived at the floating islands in the clouds above the Saint Island. Now, there were no longer only 3 floating islands below the highest floating island, but 5 floating islands. The 2 floating islands were none other than the cultivation grounds of the 2 new guardians, Duan Lingtian and Lung Ying. The Silver Flame Elder from the Zoroastrianism who was in charge of patrolling the area sensed the commotion and rushed over when he saw someone approaching. However, when he saw the person who had arrived was Duan Lingtian, he retreated. It's Lingtian, Guardian Duan Lingtian. He's back? The Silver Flame Elder who was in charge of patrolling the area was shocked when he saw Duan Lingtian had returned safely. Since Lang Qianjin, the Supreme Elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, had spoken to everyone in the Zoroastrianism, he knew what had happened today. Kerr. After a while, Duan Lingtian arrived at the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism's cultivation place. It was located at the highest point of the floating island. This floating island was at the highest point. There was no other floating island around it. It was more like a high and mighty emperor that looked down at its subjects. A formation? Duan Lingtian discovered the existence of a formation when he arrived at the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism's cultivation place. However, Duan Lingtian could easily destroy the formation with his celestial supreme treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword, since he had recovered some of his Sun Saint energy. Duan Lingtian took out the Jasper Celestial Sword and injected some Sun Saint energy into it. With a wave of his hand, a sword ray shot out and easily destroyed the formation that was blocking his way. Kerr! Duan Lingtian cried out excitedly when he arrived at the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism's cultivation place. Although his voice was not loud, it contained a trace of Sun Saint energy so it could be heard clearly in every corner of the mansion. Meanwhile, in one of the courtyards in Duan Lingtian's mansion, a beautiful woman who was pacing back and forth with a worried expression on her face trembled when she heard the voice. She lifted her head and looked at the sky. A purple figure stood there with a sword in his hand. It was none other than the figure that she had been dreaming about. Young master! The woman was so excited that her face flushed red. It was as though she had just encountered a joyous occasion. This woman was none other than Kerr. Seeing that her man was safe and sound, she finally felt relieved. After all, she was so anxious that her heart almost jumped out of her chest when she learned that the Supreme Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the powerhouse who was ranked second on the Supreme Saint ranking, had come looking for trouble with her man. It's him? He's back? The people from Zhuangzi Buddhism didn't make things difficult for him? At the same time, Gan Ru Yen, who had heard the voice, walked out of the room at the side of the courtyard. She lifted her head and looked at the familiar figure in the sky with a hint of surprise in her eyes. She had heard the voice of the Supreme Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, Lang Qianjin, when the people from Zhuangzi Buddhism had arrived. Lang Qianjin had come for Duan Lingtian with ill intentions. Because of this, her heart couldn't help but hang in the air, let alone her younger sister. Kerr! Although Kerr's voice was not loud, Duan Lingtian, who had extended his divine consciousness, heard it. Duan Lingtian immediately locked onto the source of the voice. He focused his strange pupil, and a graceful figure that he had been dreaming about appeared in his line of sight. Kerr! Duan Lingtian was overjoyed. He descended from the sky and charged toward Kerr. Outside the courtyard where Kerr was, Duan Lingtian encountered another formation that blocked his way. Once again, he destroyed it with a wave of his sword. When Duan Lingtian destroyed the formation, a voice rang in the air. "Saint Girl?" Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, who was fighting with the supreme elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism in the distance, also sensed something. His expression changed drastically. Chapter 22:10. Who is it? Who is the person who destroyed the formation I set up outside the Saint Girl's courtyard? Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, had a ghastly expression on his face after he dodged the attack from Lang Qianjin, the supreme elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism. Before he left the Zoroastrianism base, he had casually set up a formation outside the courtyard where the Saint Girl of Zoroastrianism lived. Since it was a hastily set up formation, its defensive strength was not strong. Even a golden flame elder of Zoroastrianism could easily destroy it. The reason he set up the formation was to prevent the Saint Girl and her daughter from escaping. Even Gan Ruyen, the most powerful person by the Saint Girl and her daughter's side, was unable to destroy the formation. For this reason, he was not worried at all. However, although he was at ease, he still kept an eye out and did something to the formation. As long as the formation was destroyed, he would be able to sense it immediately. At this moment, he sensed that the formation had been destroyed. Moreover, it was destroyed in an instant. In other words, the person who destroyed the formation was at least as strong as a golden flame elder of Zoroastrianism, or even stronger. Boom, 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 boom. At the same time, Lang Qianjin's attack, which Tang Xian had managed to dodge in time, landed heavily on the barren mountain beneath their feet as it missed its target. Suddenly, the entire barren mountain shook as if there was a violent earthquake. Smoke and dust filled the air as though it had just been baptized by the flames of war. After the smoke and dust settled, a bottomless pit appeared out of thin air in the barren mountain. Just by looking into the pit, one could feel chills running down one's spine. It was as though there was a terrifying monster in the pit. "Tang Xian, how dare you be distracted when you're fighting me?" After his attack failed, Lang Qianjin did not continue to attack. Instead, he hovered in the air and looked at Tang Xian with a grave expression on his face. Naturally, he noticed Tang Xian's absent-mindedness. For this reason, he felt Tang Xian's actions were an insult to him. "Elder Lang, let's call it a day. I have something to deal with now. We'll fight again in the future." Upon hearing Lang Qianjin's voice, Tang Xian glanced at him. At this moment, Tang Xian's gaze was so cold that even Lang Qianjin could not help but tremble when he saw it. Without waiting for Lang Qianjin's response, his body turned into a shadow and dissipated with the wind, as if he had been weathered into the void. Seeing this, Lang Qianjin's face turned even uglier. However, he did not do anything. This was because he knew it was impossible for him to chase after Tang Xian since Tang Xian had already cast the divine ability that was widely acknowledged as the #1 movement divine ability in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Where did Tang Xian's movement divine ability come from? Lang Qianjin's expression was slightly distorted. A hint of jealousy could be seen on his slightly distorted face. "I've never heard of Zoroastrianism having such a divine ability. Where did he obtain this divine ability? How did he come across such a fortuitous encounter? At that time, even with my cultivation base at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage and the Black Kshetra sect's most treasured divine ability, Tang Xian still managed to escape from me. At that time, his cultivation base was only at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. The Zhuangzi Buddhism's divine ability was an extremely powerful assist-type divine ability. Although it was not widely acknowledged as the best assist-type divine ability in the Dao Martial Saint Land, there were not many assist-type divine abilities in the Dao Martial Saint Land that could compare to it. Although Lang Qianjin, who was at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, had cast this divine ability, he could only watch helplessly as Tang Xian, who was at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage, escaped. Based on this, one could see how extraordinary the #1 movement divine ability in the Dao Martial Saint Land that Tang Xian mastered was. When Tang Xian's cultivation base was only at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage, Lang Qianjin could not catch up to him. Let alone now. For this reason, Lang Qianjin did not chase after Tang Xian when he saw Tang Xian casting the movement divine ability. He knew he would not be able to catch up to Tang Xian even if he tried. If that was the case, why would he waste his energy? Lang Qianjin raised an eyebrow as though he had sensed something. As he waved his hand, a green light that was flying over from afar was caught in his hand. When he opened his hand, he saw it was a communication jade token. After crushing the communication jade slip, a familiar voice clearly entered Lang Qianjin's ears. Lang Qianjin's expression changed drastically. How is this possible? An expression of shock and disbelief appeared on Lang Qianjin's face. This was because the news he received from the communication jade slip was simply too shocking. The sect leader of Black Kshetra sect had personally passed this communication jade token to him. The sect leader of Black Kshetra sect had told him everything that had happened after he left. That lucky brat who killed the Golden Lion King managed to defeat Hao Shuang with just one strike? Hao Shuang had no choice but to abandon his body and flee? If it wasn't for the fact that he intentionally spared Hao Shuang's life so Hao Shuang could seek revenge from the Zhuangzi Buddhism in the future, he might have been able to kill Hao Shuang with just one strike. Sect leader had to sever his own arm because of Hao Shuang's threat? Lang Qianjin was completely stunned when he heard this news. He did not expect that Tang Xian would be able to defeat Tang Xian. After he had dealt with Tang Xian, the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism, Hao Shuang, the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Tao Martial Saint Land, had helped them, and yet they still ended up in such a sorry state. What kind of fortuitous encounter did Duan Lingtian obtain in the independent space left behind by the 3 eminent devils? After a while, Lang Qianjin regained his senses. Lang Qianjin's face twisted again, until it became ferocious and terrifying. The heavens are unfair. Why are all the people from the Zoroastrianism so lucky? Lang Qianjin suddenly looked up at the sky with a resentful expression on his face. Whether it was Tang Xian, the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism, or Duan Lingtian, the guardian of the Zoroastrianism, their fortuitous encounters and the benefits they obtained from their fortuitous encounters made Lang Qianjin so jealous that he was about to go crazy. Tang Xian had obtained the number 1 movement divine ability in the Tao Martial Saint Land due to a fortuitous encounter. Duan Lingyan, on the other hand, had obtained the strength of the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Tao Martial Saint Land due to a fortuitous encounter. This isn't over. This isn't over. Zoroastrianism, Duan Lingtian, Lang Qianjin will remember this. Lang Qianjin will remember this. Although Lang Qianjin was unwilling to accept it, he had no choice but to accept it. The Zhuangzi Buddhism had lost the battle between Zoroastrianism and Zhuangzi Buddhism. Naturally, he could go to the Zoroastrianism alone and vent his anger on the ordinary elders and disciples of Zoroastrianism. However, the consequences of that would be the sect leader of Zoroastrianism would follow suit and go to the Zhuangzi Buddhism to vent his anger on the ordinary elders and disciples of Zhuangzi Buddhism. When he thought about the consequences, no matter how angry he was, he could only suppress his anger. There would be plenty of time in the future. He did not believe there would not be a chance for him to deal with Zoroastrianism in the future. In the Zoroastrianism estate, the cultivation place of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. But, Duan Lingtian looked at the woman who had been in his dreams for many years. He was so emotional that he did not know what to say. At the same time, he could not help but reach out to touch the woman's face with his trembling hand. However, he stopped halfway as he was afraid his hand would not touch her. The beautiful woman before him had appeared in his dreams many times. Now that she was standing in front of him, he was at a loss for what to do. He was afraid this was just a dream. Young master. 2 streams of clear tears fell from Kuer's face that could be said to be exceedingly beautiful, and then her delicate body trembled as she threw herself into Duan Lingtian's embrace, unable to restrain her emotions. At this moment, she had completely thrown aside all her feminine modesty. Now, in her eyes, There was only this man who she had been thinking about day and night. The heat in his arms made Duan Lingtian realize that everything in front of him was not his imagination. He was not dreaming. The woman who had been in his dreams was now standing in front of him and lying in his arms. Kerr. Duan Lingtian also reached out and hugged Kerr tightly, as if he was afraid she would leave him. I'm late. I'm late. You're not late. You're not late. Kerr, who was lying in Duan Lingtian's arms, shook her head. Her tear-stained face was full of satisfaction. She hugged Duan Lingtian even tighter, as if she was worried that the man she had been thinking about day and night would leave her again. Duan Lingtian hugged Kerr and felt his heart was at peace. He was like a wanderer who had found a harbor to rest in. A gentle home, a hero's grave. There was nothing better than this. At this moment, a voice sounded and broke the beautiful atmosphere. If I'm not mistaken, you must have sneaked back while the sect leader and the others were fighting with the Zhuangzi Buddhism, right? Now, shouldn't we leave first? At some point in time, Gan Ru Yen, who was hugging a little girl who was fast asleep, was standing next to Duan Lingtian and Ke. When Gan Ru Yan's words fell into Duan Lingtian's ears, Duan Lingtian felt as if he had woken up from a dream. That's right. Kerr, we have to leave now. At this moment, Duan Lingtian finally regained his senses. Just as Duan Lingtian regained his senses and spoke to Ke'er, Ke'er's expression changed. Guardian Lingtian? It's really you. A low and deep voice that was mixed with anger sounded like a thunderclap from afar, and it caused Duan Lingtian and the other two's faces to turn pale. Whoosh! Chapter 22:11. The figure that seemed to have appeared out of thin air in front of Duan Lingtian and the others and rapidly solidified was none other than the leader of Zoroastrianism, Tang Xian. Sect leader! Duan Lingtian's pupils suddenly constricted when he saw Tang Xian, and he revealed an expression of shock and disbelief. How was this possible? Wasn't the sect leader of Zoroastrianism fighting fiercely with the Grand Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism? How could he have returned so quickly? Gan Ru Yan's expression changed when she saw Tang Xian return. As for Kerr, her expression changed slightly, but she still stuck close to Duan Lingtian. It was as if as long as Duan Lingtian was by her side, she was not afraid of anything. The little girl in Gan Ru Yan's arms was Duan Lingtian and Kerr's daughter, Duan Siling. She lay quietly in Gan Ru Yan's arms. The reason why she was so quiet was because Gan Ru Yan had given her a pill that would allow her to sleep temporarily without any side effects. This was to prevent her and her mother from worrying about her father's safety. Guardian Lingtian, I didn't expect it to be you. Tang Xian looked at Duan Lingtian with a gloomy expression. His eyes were cold and piercing, as if he was about to devour Duan Lingtian. Previously, although he noticed Duan Lingtian resembled the daughter of their Zoroastrianism saint, he only suspected Duan Lingtian was the saint's man in the lower province. Of course, at the same time, he also thought of a way to test Duan Lingtian. That method was the statement he had deliberately made to the outside world. 3 months later, the saint's daughter would be executed. In his opinion, as long as Guardian Lingtian of the Zoroastrianism was the saint girl's man in the lower province, he would definitely not watch his daughter die. At that time, he would definitely give himself away. This was the opportunity Tang Xian had been waiting for. However, he did not expect Lingtian of the Zoroastrianism would be exposed even before that. It's really me? Although Duan Lingtian was shocked by Tang Xian's appearance, he could not help but feel puzzled when he heard Tang Xian's words. He did not understand what Tang Xian's words meant. As though he saw Duan Lingtian's daughter's confusion, Tang Xian snorted and said, I noticed that the saint's daughter's daughter resembles you. Moreover, you're from the lower province of the saint as well. Therefore, I'm suspicious you're the saint's man of the saint's daughter of the lower province of the saints of the saint of the lower of the saint of heaven. Daughter? Duan of the saints Ling of C daughters of the C saint of the saints of the other saint is of C of her of Lingen of that of she C of her of C. The little girl was lying in Gan Ru Yan's arms. Only half of her cute little face could be seen. However, it was difficult to hide the resemblance between them. This is Kerr's and my daughter? Duan Lingtian's heart skipped a beat when he looked at the little girl. The feeling of being connected by blood melted his heart at this moment. This was his daughter. His and Ker's daughter. However, before I can confirm it, it's just a suspicion. Tang Xian's voice resonated in the air. Initially, I wanted to wait 3 months and pretend to execute the Saint Girl's daughter to confirm my suspicions. I didn't expect you to expose yourself in advance. Tang Xian's voice was filled with rage as he spoke. It was as though he was extremely furious. Sush, sush. Upon hearing Tang Xian's words, both Ker and Gan Ruyan's expressions changed drastically. Previously, they were unaware that Tang Xian had announced to the public that he was going to execute Duan Siling. So, you released the news that you're going to execute my daughter to bait me into taking the bait? Upon hearing Tang Xian's words, Duan Lingtian finally understood the situation. His expression darkened immediately. I didn't bait you into taking the bait. Tang Xian continued to say coldly, previously, I wasn't sure if you were the man the Saint Girl had found in the lower province. I merely wanted to test you. If you weren't, everyone would be happy. However, if you are, even if you're the guardian of Zoroastrianism, your sin is unforgivable. Tang Xian's words were filled with determination. It was as though there was no room for negotiation. If Duan Lingtan was the man the Saint Girl of Zoroastrianism had found in the lower province, Duan Lingtian would be an unforgivable sinner. Lord Sect Leader. At this moment, Gan Ruyan looked at Tang Xian and said, currently, Duan Lingtian is the guardian of Zoroastrianism. He's the pillar of Zoroastrianism. Can't we give him the privilege to disregard the rules of the sect? In the past, in Zoroastrianism, didn't guardians have the privilege to disregard the rules of the sect as well? According to the rules of the sect, he's going to be executed. If he's dead, it'll be a huge loss to Zoroastrianism. It'll only bring harm to us. Gan Ruyan's intention was to convince Tang Xian to let Duan Lingtian go. Moreover, she had given Duan Lingtian and her younger sister the green light to fulfill their wishes and allow the lovers to finally get married. Little Ruyan, it's best if you don't interfere in this matter. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless even if your guardian Qing was direct disciple. Tang Xian's expression darkened when he heard Gan Ruyan's words. He glared at her. If the Saint Girl of Zoroastrianism was just an ordinary saint, he would, naturally, give the green light to Duan Lingtian and the Saint Girl because of how important Duan Lingtian was to Zoroastrianism. He would even take the initiative to matchmake them and turn their story into a story of Zoroastrianism. However, this Saint Girl was not an ordinary Saint Girl. Her origin was not simple at all. Her existence was related to that godlike expert. For this reason, he did not dare to act recklessly. Not only did he not dare to act recklessly, but he also had to imprison Duan Lingtian and wait for the godlike powerhouse's judgment in the mundane realm. Tang Xian's words to Gan Ruyan showed how determined he was about the matter between Duan Lingtian and Ker. There was no way he would allow the Duan Lingtian to be together with the Saint Girl of Zoroastrianism. Even if Duan Lingtian was the pillar of Zoroastrianism, Tang Xian would not allow it. Duan Lingtian's expression changed drastically when he heard Tang Xian's words. Initially, he was still thinking. Now that Tang Xian had seen through his disguise, perhaps he could use his current strength to make Tang Xian appreciate talents and not pursue the matter between him and Ker. He did not expect Tang Xian to be so resolute. Duan Lingtian realized there was no way he could let this matter go, so he did not waste his breath. It seems like I can only try to lure Tang Xian into the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and ask Hua Lao to kill him before he kills me. Otherwise, I'll be the one who dies. Moreover, after I die, Ker and her mother will be in danger as well. At this moment, Duan Lingtian had no other choice. This was the only thing he could do. Otherwise, he could not think of any other way to turn the situation around. Hua Lao. Duan Lingtian immediately contacted Elder Hua as soon as he decided to do it. It's too risky. He might not fall for it. This was Hua Lao's reply to Duan Lingtian. I know it's too risky and he might not fall for it. However, Hua Lao, do you think I have any other choice? Duan Lingtian asked bitterly. Put the jasper celestial sword and the universe ruler back into the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda. I'll try to see if I can send both of you back to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Hua Lao's voice resonated again, shocking Duan Lingtian. Hua Lao said, "What do you mean? Send them back to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land?" Hua Lao, Duan Lingtian was about to ask something when Hua Lao interrupted him. "There's no need to ask. What you need to do now is to put the jasper celestial sword and the universe ruler back into the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda." Alright. All this while, Hua Lao had never lied to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian trusted Hua Lao very much. Since Hua Lao had said so much, there was no need for him to hesitate anymore. With just a thought, he moved the jasper celestial sword and the universe ruler from his spatial ring to the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda. Almost as soon as Duan Lingtian put the jasper celestial sword and the universe ruler back into the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, something happened. Duan Lingtian discovered the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda that was originally the size of a speck of dust in his ear actually flew out on its own. It seemed like it was out of his control. Didn't Hua Lao say before that although he's the pagoda spirit of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, he can't control the pagoda? Duan Lingtian was confused when he saw this. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian, Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, shouted coldly. He moved in an attempt to capture Duan Lingtian. Bush, 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 bush. In just a blink of an eye, the sound of swords whistling in the air rang in the air. A circular light shield formed from tens of thousands of blood-red sword rays appeared and shrouded Duan Lingtian, Ke, Gan Ruyen, and Duan Siling. The 7 treasures exquisite pagoda that flew out on its own was also shrouded by the light shield. "Who's there?" Tang Xian's expression changed drastically when he saw the light shield that appeared out of thin air. His saint origin surged out as the strength of a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage surged out like a bolt of lightning. Duan Lingtian was stunned when he saw the light shield that appeared out of thin air and shrouded him. As a sword cultivator, he could clearly sense how terrifying the tens of thousands of blood-red sword rays that formed the light shield were. This is Elder Hua's technique? Rip. All of a sudden, the sound of something being torn apart rang in the air, attracting Duan Lingtian's attention. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian saw a crack appearing in the void. In the void where the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda was, crack appeared out of thin air. Behind the crack was extremely dark, and no one knew where it led to. Chapter 22:12. Almost as soon as Duan Lingtian and the others were sucked into the tear in the void, Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, unleashed his energy on the light shield formed by the blood-red sword rays. Boom, 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 boom. Following a series of loud booms, small mushroom clouds appeared on the side of the light barrier one after another. Terrifying shockwaves also spread out in all directions. In just a blink of an eye, the huge courtyard was reduced to rubble. Moreover, the shockwaves continued to sweep out in all directions after the courtyard was reduced to rubble. A few moments later, half of Tang Xian's mansion was reduced to rubble. Smoke and dust filled the air as though it was the end of the world. However, Tang Xian did not seem to notice this at all. Naturally, it was not that he did not notice this at all. It was just that he was distracted by something else. How's this possible? Tang Xian was shocked when he discovered this. When his power whizzed out and slammed into the circular light shield in front of him, no matter how the void outside shook and distorted, the circular light shield remained unmoved, as if it had not suffered any damage at all. Although Tang Xian did not use his full strength earlier, he had used 70 to 80% of his strength. Even a defensive technique cast by a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage would not be damaged by his energy. The light shield formed by the blood-red sword rays hovered motionlessly in the air. The tear in the void that appeared out of thin air and sucked Duan Lingtian and the others into it gradually disappeared as though it was never there in the first place. Tang Xian could only watch on helplessly. At this moment, Tang Xian did not have the time to care about Duan Lingtian and the others. He looked at the light shield that was formed by tens of thousands of blood-red sword rays and asked solemnly, "What's the matter?" The circular light barrier hovered in the air, seemingly separating two different worlds from one another. Earlier, he did not have the time to examine it. However, when Tang Xian carefully examined the light shield, he could clearly sense a terrifying aura. It was as though the aura was capable of destroying everything. Apart from that, Tang Xian had also witnessed the invincibility of the demonic beast through the probing earlier. To a certain extent, a powerhouse who could form such a light shield with his or her own strength had transcended the mundane realm. Tang Xian was well aware of this. After all, he had encountered such a powerhouse a few decades ago. That was a godlike powerhouse. Up until now, Tang Xian was still horrified when he recalled the strength that expert revealed with every single move, and he felt a strand of coldness rise from the bottom of his feet to his head. However, as soon as Tang Xian finished speaking, whoosh! The circular light barrier formed by tens of thousands of blood-red sword glows disappeared in front of Tang Xian's eyes with a gentle gust of wind. It was as though it had never appeared. All of a sudden, Tang Xian was the only one left standing in the void. Apart from that, there was a huge ruin. After a long while, Tang Xian finally regained his senses. He could not help but gasp. The light shield formed by the tens of thousands of blood-red sword rays had disappeared without a trace in just a blink of an eye. He knew very well what this meant. This meant that the light shield was not weak at all. That light shield was formed by a powerhouse with just a wave of his hand. Just a wave of his hand, and his technique is so powerful. I'm afraid such a powerhouse would be extraordinary even in the Devata realms. Tang Xian's breathing quickened when he thought of this. At the same time, he looked around vigilantly. However, he could not find anything even after he looked around for a long time. In the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, outside a dilapidated village, accompanied by the sound of something being torn apart, a hideous and terrifying crack appeared in the void. The crack continued to expand until it was 10 meters long before it stopped expanding. After it stopped expanding, it began to shrink rapidly. It was as though a spring had been pulled open. After it was released, it began to shrink rapidly. As the crack shrank, 3 figures rushed out from it. It was a purple-clothed young man and 2 women who looked exactly the same but had completely different temperaments. One of the women was carrying a little girl who was fast asleep in her arms. Hualao! The purple-clad young man's expression changed drastically when he saw the 4 of them. He cried out in agony. The 2 women regained their senses when they heard the purple-clad young man's cry. They immediately looked at the purple-clad young man. "Young master, what's wrong?" The woman with the temperament as gentle as jade looked at the purple-clad young man worriedly. She had a concerned expression on her face, and when she asked, her tone was filled with anxiety. However, the purple-clothed young man acted as if he did not hear the woman's words. He continued to stand there with a pained expression on his face. His body continued to tremble as if he had encountered something that caused him great pain. Duan Lingtian? The cold-looking woman with the little girl in her arms looked at the purple-clad young man with a frown on her face. The purple-clad young man was none other than Duan Lingtian. Just a moment ago, he, the 2 women, and the little girl were still in Zoroastrianism in the upper province's western province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. However, at this moment, they had traveled through space and arrived in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. During this process, Duan Lingtian discovered that he was no longer in the lower province. Not only had he lost contact with Hualao, but he had also lost contact with Hualao. Not only that, but even the connection between him and the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda had disappeared as well. The 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda had long acknowledged him as its master, and there was a bloodline connection between them. However, the bloodline connection had disappeared without a trace. When Duan Lingtian saw this, he immediately speculated, "What's going on?" Hualao must have used some forbidden technique to self-destruct the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda to protect them and forcefully tear open the space barrier between the upper province and the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land to send them back to the lower province. If the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda had not been destroyed, how could the connection between them have been severed? If the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda is destroyed, Hua Lao won't be able to survive. Duan Lingtian's heart trembled violently when he thought of this. Ever since he had obtained the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and met Hua Lao, the scenes of Hua Lao helping him flashed before his eyes. Now, in order to protect him, Elder Hua did not hesitate to sacrifice himself. Hua Lao! Duan Lingtian cried out in grief again as he knelt down to pray for Hua Lao's soul in heaven. Although Ke did not know what had happened, she did not know who the Hua Lao that Duan Lingtian had mentioned was. However, she could clearly feel her man's pain. Due to this reason, she immediately knelt down with him and silently stayed by his side. Gan Ru Yen stood at the side with a confused expression on her face. Not only was she confused by Duan Lingtian's action of kneeling, but she was also confused about why she had suddenly appeared in this place. This place seems to be the lower province? The heaven and earth spirit energy in this place was far from the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. However, it gave Gan Ru Yen a sense of familiarity. It was as though she had been to the lower province before. Duan Lingtian, who had been kneeling for a while, finally spoke in a hoarse voice. We've already returned to the lower province. The reason we were able to return to the lower province from the Zoroastrianism estate in the upper province is because Hua Lao sacrificed himself. He sacrificed himself to forcefully tear open the void and send us back to the lower province. That's how we managed to escape from the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, apart from sadness, there was a hint of disappointment in his voice as well. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Ke finally understood everything. She finally understood why her man was in so much pain and why he was kneeling in the void. As it turned out, it was all because of Hua Lao, who had sacrificed himself to save them and send them back to the lower province. Hua Lao, thank you for saving young master and us. Thank you. Following that, Ke kowtowed 3 times to the void as well. A hint of sadness could be heard in her voice. Although Ke had never come into contact with Hua Lao before this, and she did not know about his existence, the kind-hearted Ke was still saddened by what Hua Lao had done. Hua Lao. After learning about what had happened, Gan Ru Yen also kneeled and kowtowed 3 times to the void with a solemn expression on her face. At this moment, some of the questions in her heart were finally answered. It was no wonder Duan Lingtian thought Hua Lao, the pagoda spirit of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, had sacrificed his life and the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda to save them from the sect leader of Zoroastrianism and send them back to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. This was because of what Duan Lingtian had experienced earlier. He could only come up with such a conjecture. Apart from this, he could not think of any other possibility. Most importantly, he discovered that the connection between him and the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was no longer there. Unless the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was destroyed, how could it have lost its connection with him? However, was this really the truth of the matter? In the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, somewhere outside the Zoroastrianism's estate in the western province, a young man dressed in a blood-red robe hovered in the air. A 7-level exquisite pagoda lay quietly in his hand. If Duan Lingtian was here, he would definitely be able to recognize it with just a glance. Chapter 22:13. Lord, are we really not going to greet him? In the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, Hua Lao asked the red-clad young man through voice transmission with a wry smile on his face. Previously, when Duan Lingtian was facing the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, the red-clad young man had asked him to trick Duan Lingtian into putting the Celestial Supreme Treasures, the Jasper Celestial Sword and the Universe Ruler, back into the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. As for sending Duan Lingtian back to the lower province, it was also the red-clad young man who had asked him to do so. Later on, the red-clad young man had blocked the attack of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism and sent Duan Lingtian and the others back to the lower province. The red-clad young man had even forcefully severed the connection between Duan Lingtian and the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, causing the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda to lose its master. At the same time, it caused Duan Lingtian to lose the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, a celestial supreme treasure. Huolao could only imagine. If Duan Ling Tian discovered the connection between him and the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda had been severed after he returned to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, his imagination would definitely run wild. For this reason, he asked the red-clad young man. The red-clad young man was none other than Kuang Ling, the sword soul of the Devata artifact, the solitary destructive flaming heavenly sword. I know what I'm doing. Hearing Elder Hua's voice transmission, the sword soul, Kuang Ling, responded faintly. Then he stepped on the air and shot toward the sky. After an unknown period of time and how far Kuang Ling had flown, all of a sudden his figure came to a halt. In the next moment, swish, Kuang Ling raised his hand and pointed a finger forward. A blood-red sword light whizzed out from his fingertip, leaving behind a sinister and terrifying crack in the void. As soon as this crack appeared, it was several tens of meters long. It looked extremely exaggerated. Immediately after, Kuang Ling's figure flashed and entered the crack together with the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda. As soon as Kuang Ling left, the rift began to shrink rapidly. In the blink of an eye, the spatial crack had completely closed up, as if it had never appeared. After that, the void returned to its calm state. East of the Zoroastrianism encampment, a group of Zoroastrianism high-ranking officials returned. These senior managers of Zoroastrianism were headed by the two deputy heads of Zoroastrianism. The rest of them were either Golden Flame elders or deputy heads of the Law Enforcement Hall of Zoroastrianism. After searching for so long, we still haven't found a trace of the super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod. Do all of you think the four guardians found the Dharma Rod in advance? Suddenly, a Golden Flame elder of Zoroastrianism guessed. It's possible. After all, the speed of the four guardians is much faster than us. Moreover, we didn't see them all the way here. The super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod, has most likely been obtained by one of them. Another Golden Flame elder nodded. Based on his words, it was obvious he agreed with the former's words. Guardians, if you found the super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod, you should have told us about it. We've been searching like idiots for so long, but we still couldn't find it in the end. A Golden Flame elder grumbled softly. His words resonated with many of the people in the surroundings. Even the two deputy sect leaders felt the same way. I wonder which guardian obtained the super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod. Duan Ling Tian muttered to himself. After entering the Zoroastrianism encampment's White Tiger Sanctum, one of the vice hall masters of the Law Enforcement Hall brought up the topic. The group of Zoroastrianism high-ranking officials began to discuss among themselves. I think it's Guardian Zifeng. I think it's Guardian Zifeng as well. After all, apart from Guardian Ling Tian, Guardian Zifeng is the strongest out of the three guardians. The super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod, is most likely his. I don't think it's Guardian Zifeng. After all, it's normal for a person to make a mistake. Although Guardian Zifeng is the strongest and the fastest among the four guardians, it doesn't mean he'll definitely be able to find the super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod. That makes sense as well. However, was the super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod, really in the hands of the four guardians of the Zoroastrianism? Naturally, the answer was no. The four guardians from the fire worship sect continued to search in the direction where the super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod, flew out with Hao Shuang's severed arm. They searched every inch of the area until they reached a faraway place. However, their efforts were in vain. At this moment, they could not help but suspect Hao Shuang had returned and taken the super saint weapon, the Dharma Rod. Naturally, they returned empty-handed as well. As soon as they returned to the Zoroastrianism's estate and passed by the White Tiger Sanctum, they heard many disciples in the White Tiger Sanctum discussing the Great Battle of the Saint Land. Great Battle of the Saint Land? For a moment, they thought the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism, Tang Xian, and the supreme elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, Lang Qianjin, had returned from the battle. They immediately returned to the Saint Land of Zoroastrianism. When they returned to the Saint Land, they learned the commotion came from the sky above the Saint Island. They flew through the clouds and arrived near their cultivation place. When the four of them looked at the highest point of the floating island, they were dumbfounded. They could clearly see it, The cultivation place of their sect leader of the Zoroastrianism, the huge mansion, was in ruins. Moreover, their sect leader of the Zoroastrianism, Tang Xian, was hovering in the air above the ruins. He was motionless. No one knew what he was doing. "Greetings, Lord Guardians." At this moment, a silver figure flew over from the distance. When he saw the 4 great guardians of the fire worship sect, he bowed respectfully at them. It was none other than the Silver Flame Elder of the Zoroastrianism who was in charge of patrolling the area. What's going on?" Guardian Lunging asked with a frown on his face as he looked at the Silver Flame Elder. At this moment, he and the other 3 Zoroastrianism guardians could vaguely guess what was going on. The destruction of the cultivation place of their sect leader of the Zoroastrianism had nothing to do with the Supreme Elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism. If their sect leader of the Zoroastrianism and the Supreme Elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism had fought here, it was impossible for only half of the mansion of their sect leader of the Zoroastrianism sect to be in ruins. The battle between 2 powerhouses at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage should have destroyed all the floating islands. "I'm not too sure what's going on." The Silver Flame Elder smiled wryly. "All I know is that not long after Guardian Ling Tian returned, there was a huge commotion here. By the time I arrived, it was already like this. Lord Sect Leader has been standing there for a long time." As the Silver Flame Elder spoke, he looked at the floating island at the highest point. His gaze landed on Tang Xian, the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism. "Guardian Ling Tian?" Upon hearing the Silver Flame Elder's words, the 4 guardians of the Zoroastrianism sect frowned. After the Silver Flame Elder left, the 4 of them soared into the sky to look for Tang Xian, the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism sect. "Lord Sect Leader, what's going on?" Tang Xian regained his senses when he saw the 4 guardians of the Zoroastrianism. His tensed nerves finally relaxed. Earlier, when Tang Xian realized there might be a powerhouse who was stronger than the mundane realm hiding in the dark, he was on high alert. He did not dare to make any rash moves. Just like that, he stood there for a long time. It was only when the 4 guardians of the Zoroastrianism appeared that he relaxed. He realized the powerhouse had most likely left. "It's nothing." Tang Xian shook his head when he saw the 4 guardians looking at him in confusion. It was not that he wanted to hide the truth, but he did not know where to begin. After all, if he did not see it with his own eyes, it would be hard for him to believe there was such a powerhouse in the mundane realm. "Did all of you just come back?" Tang Xian asked when he saw the 4 guardians of the Zoroastrianism were travel-worn. It was as though they had just returned from afar. "Yes." Guardian Hong Yun nodded. Then she smiled wryly and said, "We went to look for the Super Saint weapon, the Dharma Rod. That's why we came back a little late." "The Super Saint weapon, the Dharma Rod?" Tang Xian's eyes lit up when he heard Hong Yun's words. "The Dharma Rod has appeared? Where did all of you get this information from?" "The Super Saint weapon, the Dharma Rod, is in Hao Shuang's hands." The 4 guardians of the Zoroastrianism began to tell Tang Xian everything that had happened after he left the mundane realm. This included how the Zhuangzi Buddhism had invited Hao Shuang to the mundane realm. It also included how Duan Lingtian had defeated Hao Shuang with a single move. They told Tang Xian everything that had happened after that. It took Tang Xian a while to regain his senses. He was shocked. He defeated Hao Shuang with a single move? A complicated expression appeared on Tang Xian's face when he received confirmation from the 4 guardians of the Zoroastrianism. If it was not for the threat from that godlike powerhouse, Duan Lingtian, the strongest person at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Tao Martial Saint Land, would be one of the pillars of the Zoroastrianism. The strength of the Zoroastrianism would be further enhanced with a guardian like Duan Lingtian. "What a joke!" Tang Xian muttered to himself. Tang Xian sighed when he thought about Duan Lingtian, who was nowhere to be found. He had no idea where Duan Lingtian was sent to. Lord Sect Leader? The 4 guardians of the Zoroastrianism were even more confused when they saw Tang Xian's reaction. Guardian Lingtian is the man the saint girl found in the lower province. The saint girl's daughter is his child. Tang Xian said in a deep voice. The four guardians of the Zoroastrianism were stunned when they heard Tang Xian's words. Guardian Ling Tian was the man the saint girl of the Zoroastrianism found in the lower province? This. Chapter 22:14. Although the four guardians of Zoroastrianism still found it hard to believe, they had no choice but to believe what Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, had said. Sect leader? Zifeng immediately looked at Tang Xian and said in a deep voice, although Guardian Ling Tian's actions have violated the rules of Zoroastrianism and can't be forgiven, it's still better for us to have him than to lose him. After all, with his current strength, he's capable of holding his own in the entire Dao Martial Saint land. With him, our Zoroastrianism will be like a tiger that has grown wings. The moment Zifeng spoke, the other three guardians chimed in one after another. That's right, sect leader. Although Zoroastrianism has strict rules, the guardians of Zoroastrianism have always had the privilege of ignoring the rules. In my opinion, we should let Guardian Ling Tian and the Saint Girl be together. Although the marriage between Guardian Ling Tian and the Saint Girl is against the rules of Zoroastrianism, isn't it a precedent? Even if this matter is passed down to the future, it'll still be a rare story in the history of Zoroastrianism. Indeed. Moreover, Guardian Ling Tian possesses the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet. In the future, when the Devil clans invade the upper province, Zoroastrianism can rely on the Devil Seal Tablet to gain the upper hand. The four guardians of Zoroastrianism spoke in unison, asking Tang Xian to let Guardian Ling Tian and the Saint Girl be together. It's impossible for me to let them be together now. When Tang Xian heard their words, he recalled what had happened earlier and could not help but let out a cold snort. The four guardians of Zoroastrianism were confused when they heard Tang Xian's words. They did not know what Tang Xian meant. If I'm not mistaken, Duan Ling Tian and the Saint Girl should have returned to the lower province by now. Tang Xian continued to speak in a deep voice. And the reason why he made such a guess was because this was the only possibility. The void rifts that appeared in the light shield were either connected to an independent space left behind by an eminent celestial or connected to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint land. If it was an independent space left behind by an eminent celestial, it was impossible that he did not notice it until now. No matter what, this was his place to cultivate. For this reason, he had guessed. Duan Ling Tian, the Saint Girl of the Fire Worship sect, and Gan Ru Yen, the daughter of the Saint Girl, should have returned to the lower province through the tear in the void. The lower province? Upon hearing Tang Xian's words, the four guardians from the Fire Worship sect who had yet to regain their senses were stunned. At the same time, in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint land, outside the dilapidated village, Duan Ling Tian, who had been kneeling for an unknown amount of time, finally stood up slowly. As he stood up, Duan Ling Tian helped Kerr, who was kneeling beside him, up. Hualao, Duan Ling Tian held Kerr's hand tightly as he stood next to Kerr. He looked at the boundless sky and muttered, "Don't worry. Since you're the one who traded your life for mine, I'll cherish my life even more." As soon as Duan Ling Tian finished speaking, he bowed deeply at the boundless sky. Kerr followed suit and bowed as well. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian thought the celestial supreme treasure, the seven treasures exquisite pagoda, was destroyed and Hua Lao was dead. He did not expect the seven treasures exquisite pagoda would be destroyed. Not only was Hua Lao not dead, but the seven treasures exquisite pagoda was not destroyed as well. The seven treasures exquisite pagoda was destroyed by a powerhouse from the Devata realm. That powerhouse was extremely powerful. With just a thought, he had erased the seven treasures exquisite pagoda's ownership mark. Currently, the seven treasures exquisite pagoda and Hua Lao had been brought back to the Devata realm by that powerhouse. "We've been in the lower province for quite some time now," Duan Ling Tian said. At this moment, Gan Ru Yen, who was standing at the side, looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked, "Where are we going now? I'm afraid the lower province isn't as peaceful as we thought." She had also heard about the news of Duan Ling Tian in Sin City. She knew the devil clans from the land of exile had once again crossed the space barrier and entered the Debussy subterranean. Let's return to the Azure Cloud Mansion. Duan Lingtian replied immediately when he heard Gan Ru Yan's question. In the past, Gan Ru Yan was the only one who knew about the quasi-third-rate force, the Azure Cloud Mansion, in the lower province. Kerr knew nothing about the Azure Cloud Mansion. Moreover, they did not know Duan Lingtian was the young mansion master of the Azure Cloud Mansion. Later on, when Duan Lingtian's name spread throughout the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, news of Duan Lingtian's deeds in the lower province began to spread. At this moment, both Kerr and Gan Ru Yan had learned about Duan Lingtian's identity in the lower province. Young master? Since you're the young mansion master of the Azure Cloud Mansion, is Aunt Ro in the Azure Cloud Mansion as well? Kerr asked as she looked at Duan Lingtian. At the same time, there was a look of concern in her eyes. In her heart, she had long regarded Aunt Ro as her mother. She was in the upper province previously, but I'm not sure now. A worried expression appeared on Duan Lingtian's face as he shook his head. After all, he had just returned to the lower province. All he knew was that the devil clans from the land of exile had invaded the lower province. However, he knew nothing about the situation in the lower province. However, he was certain of one thing. In the face of the devil clans from the land of exile, the people in the lower province would not be able to resist at all. After all, most of the people who were still in the lower province were weaker than the rest. Most of the powerhouses in the Dao Martial Saint Land were in the upper province. This village. When Duan Lingtian glanced at the dilapidated village with his consciousness, he discovered the village was filled with withered corpses. It was as though the corpses had been sucked dry by something. So this is the technique of the devil clans from the land of exile? Duan Lingtian's heart trembled involuntarily when he saw the withered corpses. His expression turned grave as well. It's really cruel. In the past, Duan Lingtian had only heard about the techniques of the devil clans. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he was shocked. This technique was similar to the techniques of the devil cultivators he had heard about before he went to the upper province. The devil cultivators would suck people dry and rely on the vital energy and blood to raise their strength. At the same time, whether it was Kerr or Gan Ru Yan, they followed Duan Lingtian's gaze and saw the dried corpses that littered the village. Both of their faces turned pale at the same time. Young master, this... Kerr couldn't bear it and closed her eyes. When she opened her mouth again, her voice was slightly trembling. These humans must have been killed by the devil clans from the land of exile. Duan Lingtian said in a deep voice. No wonder they say the devil clans are cruel and inhumane. Now that I've seen it for myself, they really live up to their reputation. Gan Ru Yan's expression turned grave as well. After all, the dried corpses on the ground were humans just like her. Don't wake Sealing up yet? Let's return to the Azure Cloud Mansion first. When Duan Lingtian spoke, he had already appeared in front of Gan Ru Yan in just a flash. Without greeting Gan Ru Yan, he raised his hand and snatched the little girl from Gan Ru Yan's arms. Naturally, the word, snatch, was an exaggeration. Although Duan Lingtian's speed was fast, his movements were very gentle. He did not wake the little girl up. Gan Ru Yan was furious when she saw Duan Lingtian snatching her niece from her arms without even greeting him. However, when she looked at Duan Lingtian angrily and saw the gentleness in Duan Lingtian's eyes when he looked at her niece, her anger disappeared immediately. At this moment she finally remembered. This man was her niece's father. It had been nearly 10 years since her niece was born, but today was the first time the father and daughter had met. When she put herself in Duan Lingtian's shoes and thought about it, she felt relieved. Kerr, you've worked hard. Without anyone noticing, Duan Lingtian had already brought his daughter to Kerr's side. He extended his hand and held Kerr's hand tightly as he said gently, It's not hard. Young master, it's not hard at all. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Kerr seemed to be touched. Tears began to well up in her beautiful eyes. Don't call me young master in the future. Duan Lingtian let go of Kerr's hand and took the opportunity to pull Kerr into his embrace. Then he lowered his head and buried his face in Kerr's hair. You're my wife. I don't want to hear you call me that in the future. I hope that was the last time you call me that. Duan Ling Tian's tone was domineering and unquestionable. He had to be domineering. In the past, he had asked Kerr to stop calling him young master. However, Kerr would always forget about it after a period of time. Of course, this was partly because Kerr was used to calling him that. However, from today onward, he did not want to hear Kerr call him that again. He was not her young master. He was her husband. All right. When Kerr heard Duan Lingtian calling her his wife, she could not help but tremble violently. 2 streams of tears rolled down her beautiful face as she said gently, "From now on, I'll call you Brother Tian." Good girl. A warm smile appeared on Duan Lingtian's face when he heard Kerr's words. At the same time, he hugged Kerr even tighter. Gan Ru Yen stood not far away. When she saw the family of 3 hugging together, a rare smile appeared on her usually cold and beautiful face. She was happy for her sister. Chapter 22:15. After spending some time together, Duan Lingtian carried his sleeping daughter in his arms and brought his wife, Kerr, and Kerr's twin sister, Gan Ru Yen, to the Azure Cloud Mansion. Although Duan Lingtian had directly passed through the space barrier between the upper province and the lower province to arrive at the lower province, it was not difficult for him to find his way as long as he was certain of the direction. Whether it was Kerr or Gan Ru Yen, Duan Lingtian was the one who brought them along as he flew. With his current cultivation base at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage, his speed was much faster than ordinary powerhouses at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage when he cast the Assist-type Divine ability, the Elementary Devouring Tactic, and the Movement Divine ability, the Golden Crow's Wings. Not only that, in terms of speed, nobody below the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage was a match for him. For this reason, it did not take long for him to arrive at the vicinity of the Azure Cloud Mansion. In Duan Lingtian's memory, the Azure Cloud Mansion was located above a vast lake called the Crouching Dragon Lake. However, at this moment, where's the Crouching Dragon Lake? Duan Lingtian's expression changed drastically when he saw the boundless plain in front of him. He was certain. This was where the Crouching Dragon Lake was located in the Azure Cloud Mansion. However, it had been filled in now? Swoosh, swoosh. In the distance, 2 sounds of wind whistling in the air attracted Duan Lingtian's attention. Duan Lingtian looked over. In the distance, 2 figures were flying in the same direction. Based on their speed, one could tell they were at the Saint Celestial stage or above. At first glance, one could tell the 2 figures were humans. One was a young man while the other was a middle-aged man. However, as Duan Lingtian extended his divine consciousness and quietly probed their bodies without them noticing, he discovered they were different. What a dense and pure devil chi. They're from the devil clans. In just a blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian confirmed their identities. They were not humans like him, but demons from the land of exile. Let's follow them and take a look. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was eager to find out why the Crouching Dragon Lake in the Azure Cloud Mansion had disappeared and why it was filled up. For this reason, he carried his daughter and brought along Kerr and Gan Ru Yen as he followed the 2 people in front. More precisely, it was 2 demons in human form. Coincidentally, the direction they were heading in was also the direction of the Azure Cloud Mansion's main mansion. Brother Tian, did something happen? On the way, Kerr noticed that something was wrong with Duan Lingtian. She could not help but ask softly. Her tone was filled with concern. He must be surprised by the disappearance of the Crouching Dragon Lake in the Azure Cloud Mansion. Before Duan Lingtian could reply, Gan Ru Yen had already spoken. Back then, when I was in the lower province, I passed by the Azure Cloud Mansion twice. I remember there was no land under our feet. This is a vast lake called the Crouching Dragon Lake. As Gan Ru Yen spoke, a frown appeared on her face. It seems like it has been filled up by the devil clans. After a while, Gan Ru Yen's frown disappeared. She finally figured out why the Crouching Dragon Lake had disappeared. Where's the main mansion of the Azure Cloud Mansion? After following the 2 people in front for a while, Duan Lingtian raised his head and discovered the floating island that was originally suspended in the air had disappeared. All that was left were the blue sky and white clouds. Duan Lingtian's expression turned grave immediately. The main mansion of the Azure Cloud Mansion was not only the headquarters of the Azure Cloud Mansion, but it also housed his family and a group of close friends as well. Now that he had returned from the upper province, not only did he discover the Crouching Dragon Lake in the Azure Cloud Mansion was gone, but the main mansion of the Azure Cloud Mansion was gone as well. Father, mother, little Fei, Uncle Feng, senior brother. At this moment, Duan Lingtian thought about his father, his mother, his wife, Li Fei, his son, Feng Wudao, Bai Li Hong, and the others. Currently, the main mansion of the Azure Cloud Mansion no longer existed. Were they safe? These were the things that Duan Lingtian was worried about. There's a city in front. Gan Ruyan's voice suddenly sounded, waking Duan Lingtian up from his thoughts. He immediately regained his senses and looked in the direction of Gan Ruyan's gaze. In front of him was a vast and huge brand new city. It was like a gigantic beast that was crawling in the vast plains. It was majestic and domineering. I don't remember there being a city like this near the Azure Cloud Mansion. Gan Ruyan asked as she looked at Duan Lingtian with uncertainty. Then, without waiting for Duan Lingtian's reply, she continued to say, "The size of this city is even bigger than Sin City in the Upper Province's Central Province. Don't tell me this is a city built by the devil clans from the land of exile?" "I think so," Duan Lingtian muttered in a deep voice as he looked at the city in front of him. His eyes were burning with flames. These were the flames of hatred. They built this city at the location of our Azure Cloud Mansion's Saint Stone Reserve. It seems like they're planning to settle down here. When Duan Lingtian spoke again, his voice sounded calm, but his tone was extremely cold. It gave people the feeling that winter had arrived. At this moment, the two figures that Duan Lingtian was following had also entered the city. At this moment, more and more figures appeared in front of Duan Lingtian's eyes. These figures either came out of the city or entered the city from the outside. The city in front of them was like a gigantic beast that was crawling with its mouth wide open, swallowing people one after another. These demons have actually taken on the appearance of humans? When they arrived near the city, Duan Lingtian saw the figures that entered his eyes again. None of them were the rumored strange-looking devil clans. All of them had the appearance of humans. At first glance, they looked like ordinary humans. However, when Duan Lingtian examined them with his divine consciousness, he could clearly sense the dense and pure devil chi in their bodies. This was not the devil chi that a devil cultivator should possess. Even if it was a devil cultivator who had received the devil clan's orthodox inheritance, it was impossible for him to produce such dense and pure devil chi in just a few years. Are they humans or devils? Even Gan Ruyan was stunned. These devils who had transformed into humans were just humans in her eyes. However, she did not dare to use her divine consciousness to examine them. From the feedback of my divine sense, it's unlikely that they're humans. Even if they're human devil cultivators who have received the orthodox inheritance of the devil race, it's impossible for them to produce such dense and pure devil chi without decades of hard work. Duan Lingtian said, "Every single one of them, you can sense the devil energy in their bodies?" Gan Ruyan asked. "Yes." Duan Lingtian nodded. "I can clearly sense the devil chi in the bodies of those who I'm probing. Brother Tian, we don't have any devil chi in our bodies. Won't they recognize us if we enter the city?" Suddenly, Ku'er opened her mouth. Duan Lingtian's words reminded Duan Lingtian of something. "Indeed, we'll be exposed if someone tries to investigate us. Currently, the strongest devil we've encountered is only at the 4th form of the Saint Celestial stage. With me around, they won't be able to detect us. However, if we enter the city, there's a high chance there'll be more powerful devils. If there's a devil with a higher cultivation base than me, he'll be able to easily detect us with his divine consciousness," Duan Lingtian said. Gan Ruyan frowned again when she heard Duan Lingtian's words. A hint of worry could be seen on her face as she asked, "What should we do now? If there's a devil who's stronger than you in the city, won't we be courting death if we enter the city?" "That's indeed a problem." Duan Lingtian came to a halt and began to ponder over it with a frown on his face. After a while, an idea appeared in his mind. "I have an idea. However, we'll have to carry it out to see if it'll work. What's the idea? Ganru Yan's eyes lit up. Kerr looked at Duan Lingtian with admiration in her eyes. It was as though he was her idol. You'll find out soon enough. Duan Lingtian did not say anything as he led the two women in another direction. They did not enter the city that was as big as Sin City. He's the one. After flying for a while, the number of devils in human form began to dwindle. In the end, Duan Lingtian only saw one devil in human form. Bush, bush, bush. As the sound of three figures breaking through the air reverberated in the air, the devil who had taken on the appearance of a young man in the distance also noticed the three figures that were flying toward him at high speed. Horror dawned on the devil when he sensed the speed of the three figures. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, Duan Lingtian and the other two arrived near the devil. They studied him from head to toe. Greetings, my lords. The devil bowed respectfully in front of Duan Lingtian and the other two. At the same time, he could not help but feel uneasy. This was because the speed that the three of them displayed earlier was simply too ridiculous to him. His cultivation base was only at the first form of the Saint's celestial stage. However, based on the speed of the three figures, it was obvious they had an extraordinary cultivation base. Chapter 22:16. However, the devil who had assumed the appearance of a young man did not notice Duan Lingtian's presence. The twin sisters beside the purple-clothed young man were being carried by the purple-clothed young man. When Duan Lingtian arrived in front of the devil who had transformed into a young man, he did not waste his breath on him. He immediately carried out his plan. With a wave of his hand, he took out a stone tablet with a missing corner. This stone tablet was none other than the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet. The Devil Seal Tablet was a Super Saint weapon, a 10,000 inscriptions saint weapon. However, its boost to one's attack was not even comparable to ordinary saint weapons. Its greatest characteristic was that it had a terrifying suppressive effect on devil cultivators and even the devil race. Buzz, 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 buzz. As soon as the Devil Seal Tablet appeared in Duan Lingtian's hand, it began to tremble violently again. It was as though a hunter who had not succeeded in hunting for a long time had finally found his prey. In the instant that the Devil Seal tombstone appeared, the devilish man's face paled significantly. This seemingly inconspicuous stone tablet seemed to contain a power that made him feel fear from the bottom of his soul. Suppress. Before the devil could react, Duan Lingtian had already raised the Devil Seal Tablet and smashed it at him. He had killed the devil before he could even react. I feel like the Devil Seal Tablet is more excited when it encounters a devil than when it encounters a devil cultivator. Soon after, the devil's soul was devoured by the Devil Seal Tablet. The reason the devil's soul was not destroyed was because the devil was at the first form of the Saint's celestial stage. His soul was so powerful that even the Devil Seal Tablet would need to seal him for a long time before it could destroy him. I hope it works. As soon as the devil's soul was devoured by the Devil Seal Tablet, Duan Lingtian's body suddenly moved forward. When he reappeared, he was already standing next to the devil's body. After collecting the devil's spatial ring, Duan Lingtian grabbed the devil's body. His eyes were cold. Elementary devouring technique. After casting the elementary devouring tactic, Duan Lingtian immediately devoured the devil's innate spiritual root. It's only a yellow innate spiritual root? In the process of devouring, Duan Lingtian discovered something. This devil only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root. In the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, it was difficult for those with yellow innate spiritual roots to break through to the quintessential saint stage, let alone the Saint's celestial stage. However, he was certain this devil was at the first form of the Saint's celestial stage. I almost forgot that he's a devil. Even if he's slightly less talented, he'll still be able to raise his cultivation base in a short time by continuously devouring the essence and blood of humans and his own kind. Soon after, Duan Lingtian recalled this point and came to a realization. However, just as he was feeling relieved, a cold light flashed in his eyes. It was as sharp as a blade. Elementary devouring tactic. After devouring the devil's innate spiritual root, Duan Lingtian did not stop there. Instead, he continued to cast the elementary devouring tactic. This was the most important part of his plan. As Duan Lingtian cast the elementary devouring tactic, the devouring force seemed to have a specific purpose. It did not devour all of the devil's energy. Instead, it only extracted the devil chi from the devil's body. This was a huge project. For this reason, Duan Lingtian spent a long time on it. Of course, it would take a long time to devour the innate spiritual root. In fact, it only took him a dozen breaths. Alright, now, it's time for the most important part. After Duan Lingtian extracted the devil chi from the devil clansman's body using the elementary devouring tactic, he took a deep breath and guided the pure devil chi into his body. In just a blink of an eye, the devil chi was repelled by the sun saint origin. In the end, Duan Lingtian scattered the devil chi all over his body so that it would not come into contact with the sun saint origin. This way, the devil powerhouses will be able to detect the devil chi in my body when they probe me with their divine consciousness. They'll be able to confirm that I'm one of them. At this moment, Duan Lingtian knew he had succeeded. He had successfully disguised himself as a devil. However, this devil chi isn't the devil chi that I created myself. It's being consumed and volatilized at every moment. I'm afraid that in at most a month, this devil chi will disperse on its own, and I'll return to my original form. Soon after, Duan Lingtian discovered this. A month's time is enough for me to understand the situation in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land and find out what's going on in that city. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, he felt much more confident. Ke and Gan Ru Yen stood in the distance as they watched Duan Lingtian quietly. From the beginning until the end, they could not figure out what was going on. It was only when Duan Lingtian explained to them that they finally understood. You can actually use the devil chi for yourself? At this moment, Gan Ruyen was shocked by Duan Lingtian's technique. Even though she knew the man whom she had not taken seriously in the past had already surpassed her when they were still in the upper province, she still did not know how strong he was. However, she did not expect him to have such a technique. I'm not using it for myself. I'm just temporarily keeping it in my body to prevent the devil powerhouses from detecting us. Duan Lingtian corrected her. Now, let's continue to look for our prey. We'll look for 3 more devils and temporarily keep the devil chi in your bodies. This way, we'll be able to conceal your identities as humans for the time being. Duan Lingtian continued to say to Ke and Gan Ru Yen. Although Duan Lingtian did not want to disguise himself as a devil, he had no choice but to do so based on the current situation. Although he was strong now, there were many devils who were stronger than him in the devil clans. This was the only way for him to enter the devil clan's city to investigate. Now that I've lost the celestial supreme treasure, the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, I'm like a tiger without its fangs. Before I returned to the lower province, Elder Hua asked me to return the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda to the celestial supreme treasure, the universe ruler and the jasper celestial sword. Duan Lingtian let out a long sigh when he thought about this. Without the celestial supreme treasure, the jasper celestial sword, he was no match for a powerhouse like Hao Shuang. Although Hao Shuang was a quasi-9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, he was still a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Naturally, Duan Lingtian was unaware of this. Whether it was the celestial supreme treasures, the universe ruler or the jasper celestial sword, it was Hua Lao who had asked him to return them to the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda. He thought Hua Lao had to rely on the universe ruler and the jasper celestial sword to defend against the sect leader of Zoroastrianism and send them back to the lower province. Duan Lingtian shook his head and decided not to dwell on it. He continued to look for his next prey. It did not take long before he found 3 more prey. 2 of them were at the Saint Celestial stage while the last one was at the quintessential Saint stage. Duan Lingtian had successfully extracted the devil chi from the 3 of them and merged it with Ke, Gan Ru Yen, and his daughter. Duan Lingtian had also performed the soul-searching secret tactic on the devil young master whose cultivation base was only at the quintessential Saint stage. He managed to obtain a lot of useful information from the devil young master. As it turns out, They're not devils in human form. They're actually devils in human form. Duan Lingtian was not the only one who was shocked. Ke and Gan Ru Yen were shocked as well. The human devil clan. I didn't expect there to be a devil clan in the land of exile. Duan Lingtian sighed softly. The so-called human devil clan referred to the descendants of devil cultivators who had followed the devil clan back to the land of exile during the previous human devil era. They were the offspring of the devil clan and the devil clan. It had been more than 100,000 years since the last human devil era. During these 100,000 years, the human devil clan had managed to grow to a large scale in the land of exile due to their incredible reproductive ability. Due to the fact that they had both human and devil bloodlines, they managed to unite and grow stronger when they were rejected by the other pure-blooded devils. In the end, they even became one of the strongest devil clans in the land of exile. Naturally, due to their bloodline, they were still rejected by the other devil clans and were not acknowledged by the other devil clans. However, due to their current strength, the other devil clans did not dare to go to war with them even if they did not like them. The devil clan's invasion of the Dao Martial Saint land this time was led by the Ox Devil clan, one of the major clans in the devil clans. At the same time, Duan Lingtian learned about the things he wanted to know. Apart from that, he also learned about the origin of the city they had passed by earlier. That city was built by the Human Devil clan after they invaded the Dao Martial Saint land with the devil clans. It's also the Human Devil clan's main base in the Dao Martial Saint land. The surrounding area is now the Human Devil clan's territory. That's why I can't see any other devil clans. The Human Devil clan has a similar distribution of forces to the humans. The 3 palaces and 6 halls are the strongest among them. At this moment, Duan Lingtian had a better understanding of the Human Devil clan. I didn't expect that after the last Human Devil era, a race closely related to us humans was born in the land of exile, the Human Devil clan. Duan Lingtian could not help but sigh. Ke and Gan Ru Yan's feelings were similar to Duan Lingtian's. Chapter 22:17. However, I didn't expect this member of the demonic human clan to be a disciple of a powerful clan. After Duan Lingtian learned as much as he could from the members of the Human Devil clan, he decided to make a trip to the city. Duan Lingtian finally learned that the city was called the Human Devil City. The city was called the Human Devil Saint City. This human devil came to the Dao Martial Saint land with his clan. At that time, this area had already been occupied by the Human Devil clan's vanguard. The Crouching Dragon Lake in the Azure Cloud Mansion had been filled, and the main mansion of the Azure Cloud Mansion had disappeared. After his family came here, they immediately helped to build the Human Devil Saint City. In a short period of time, they built the Human Devil Saint City together with the other members of the Human Devil clan. For this reason, Duan Lingtian decided to make a trip to the Human Devil Saint City to find out more about the Azure Cloud Mansion. If he could not find anything, he would have to return to his hometown to have a look. In this world, Duan Lingtian's hometown was the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint land. If one were to delve deeper, they would find it was the Mortal Continent, the Cloud Continent, located south of the Debussy subterranean. If one were to delve deeper, they would be the Dark Han Dynasty, the Darkstone Empire, the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Let's go to the Human Devil Saint City. Duan Lingtian called out to Ke and Gan Ru Yen as he carried his daughter who was still asleep. Sush, sush, sush. Following that, Duan Lingtian mobilized his energy and transformed it into an invisible energy before he brought the 2 women back to the city they had passed by earlier at an extremely fast speed. The Human Devil Saint City. It was a city that was even larger than Sin City in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land. There are many forces in the Human Devil clan. Apart from the mysterious patriarch who's suspected to have passed the heavenly tribulation and is about to ascend to the Devata realm, the strongest force is the 3 palaces and 6 halls. The 6 hall masters of the 3 palaces and 6 halls are the strongest powerhouses under the patriarch of the Human Devil clan. The 3 palace masters are at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, while the 6 hall masters are at the peak of the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Duan Lingtian felt his scalp go numb when he heard this. The human demon clan was one of the strongest demon clans in the land of exile. However, the number of powerhouses in the human devil clan was comparable to the total number of powerhouses in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land. After Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, broke through to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, there are only 4 known powerhouses at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the upper province. As for eminent celestials, I'm afraid there's only one known powerhouse in the Dao Martial Saint land, Nye Wu Tian. Most importantly, Nye Wu Tian hasn't appeared for a long time, so we can't be sure if he has ascended or not. If he has ascended, we might not even have any eminent celestials in the human race. Among the devil clans, just the human devil clan alone has an eminent celestial. I'm afraid the other devil clans that are as famous as the human devil clan have no lack of eminent celestials as well. Although Duan Lingtian was as calm as a rock, he could not help but break out in cold sweat when he thought about the human race's situation. There were so many powerhouses in the devil clans. On the other hand, the human race was not even on the same level as the human race. When Duan Lingtian arrived outside the human devil saint city, he studied the city carefully for the first time. He saw the city walls. The walls of the city were engraved with all kinds of patterns and patterns of all shapes and sizes. Upon closer inspection, he discovered there were 2 types of carvings. One of the carvings was of humans. There were big and small, old and young, male and female. The other type of carvings was strange. There were creatures with the head of a cow and the body of a human. There were also creatures with the head of a pig and the body of a human. At the very least, Duan Lingtian had never seen such a creature before. However, this did not stop him from guessing what the strange creatures were. The cow and the body of a human should be the ox devil. As for the pig and the body of a human, it should be the boar devil. There were also some strange-looking creatures that Duan Lingtian could not recognize or guess what they were. The only thing he was certain of was that they were demons. They were also members of the devil race, the natural enemies of the human race. Soon after, Duan Lingtian, and Duan Lingtian arrived at the city gate, causing a commotion. This was because the twin sisters standing next to Duan Lingtian were extremely beautiful. Their beauty was one thing. Most importantly, the aura of unparalleled beauty that they exuded was the most attractive thing. Many of the male human devils in the surroundings looked at the twin sisters with bloodshot eyes. Some of them even had their skin flushed red as though they had just been bathed in hot water. It was especially eye-catching. Although these human devils looked no different from ordinary humans, they had the blood of the devil clans in their veins. Therefore, it was obvious when they were excited. Humph! Duan Lingtian's expression darkened when he sensed the gazes of the male human devils in the surroundings. He snorted coldly. Almost as soon as he finished snorting, whoosh! A cold aura surged out of Duan Lingtian's body and swept out in all directions, hitting the male human devils in the surroundings. The male human devils felt as though they had been plunged into an ice cave. This was mainly due to Duan Lingtian's powerful divine consciousness mixed with his aura. The divine consciousness of a powerhouse at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage was no joke. Most of the male human devils immediately averted their gazes from Kerr and Duan Lingtian. At this moment, they realized that Duan Lingtian had a master. This pair of twin sisters had a master, and they belonged to a powerful expert who was quite strong. Yu Yen, your man seems to be a little narrow-minded. When Gan Ru Yen spoke to her younger sister through voice transmission, apart from a hint of teasing, there was also a hint of envy in her voice. She knew her limits. The reason Duan Lingtian was unhappy and had even made a move to suppress the male human devils in the surroundings was because they were looking at her younger sister. It had nothing to do with her. Upon hearing Gan Ru Yan's voice transmission, Ku Er's beautiful eyes narrowed into crescents. It was a beautiful sight. You're seeking death. Duan Lingtian's expression darkened when he discovered a few male human devils were still staring at Kerr. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian did not seem to make any movements, but a gust of golden energy appeared out of thin air from his body. It was the Sun Saint energy. As soon as the Sun Saint energy appeared, It transformed into tiny golden sword rays on Duan Ling Tian's body. They hovered in the air and emitted a terrifying sword intent. All of a sudden, whoosh, 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 the sound of sword whistling rang in the air. It was like a flash in the pan, sending chills down one's spine. Ah! As soon as the sound of sword whistling rang in the air, a series of shrill cries rang in the air as well. The male human devils who continued to stare at Kerr despite Duan Lingtian's warning were blinded. Blood splattered all over their faces. This. When the human devils regained their senses, they could not help but gasp when they saw the miserable state the male human devils were in. "I'll kill you." After one of the male human devils was blinded by Duan Lingtian, he lost all rationality and lunged at Duan Lingtian. Even though he had lost his eyes, he still used his divine consciousness to lock onto Duan Lingtian. "Noisy!" Duan Lingtian shouted impatiently when he saw the human devil lunging at him. He raised his hand and slapped the human devil. It seemed like a casual slap, but when it neared the human devil, a domineering force surged out. The human devil was like a lone boat in the vast ocean. He was drowned in just a blink of an eye. The sun saint energy that shot out from Duan Lingtian's palm surged out like a flash flood, incinerating the human devil without leaving a single trace behind. The entire place was shocked. The remaining blind male human devils were initially furious. However, when they sensed what had happened with their divine consciousness, they were terrified. Domineering. Too domineering. This was the impression Duan Lingtian left on the group of human devils at the city gate. When they looked at him again, they were filled with respect and fear. The reason Duan Lingtian was so ruthless was because he had killed a devil. If he had killed a human, he would have taught them a lesson at most and forced them to back off. Duan Lingtian carried his sleeping daughter and brought Kerr and her sister into the city. In the northern region of the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, 7 figures hovered in the air at the peak of the snow-capped peak. 3 of them were women. The 3 peerless beauties stood there, and it was as if everything around them had lost their splendor. "Everyone Gu Li will be leaving first. I'm sure I'll be the first among the 7 of us to become famous in the upper province." One of the other 4 men laughed heartily and also flew towards the south. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. After the man who called himself Gu Li left, the other 4 men scattered and flew south as well. "I wonder what Senior Uncle Prophet is doing. He's always changing his mind. Previously, he told us to wait for half a year before we could leave, but now he's chasing us away." The remaining twin brothers also left the snow-capped peak and the northern region. Chapter 22:18. While the successors of the 6 absolutes of the 7 absolutes sect entered the world, the western region of the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land was not peaceful as well. News of the supreme elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, Lang Qianjin, leading a group of people from Zhuangzi Buddhism to Zoroastrianism to look for Duan Lingtian, the new guardian of Zoroastrianism, began to spread. "Hey, did you hear? After learning that Guardian Lingtian has returned to the Saint sect, the people from Zhuangzi Buddhism came to seek revenge." "I heard about it as well. It said that even the supreme elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the person ranked second on the Supreme Saint ranking, personally came. If that person doesn't come, it's useless no matter how many people from Zhuangzi Buddhism come. They won't be able to take Guardian Lingtian away from the Saint sect." "That's right. Now that Lord Sect leader of the Saint sect has broken through to the 9th form of the Saint celestial stage, if the supreme elder of the Black Kshetra sect doesn't come, it's meaningless for the others to come. Since sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism has come, it's obvious that Zhuangzi Buddhism is determined to take Lingtian away." A commotion broke out in the western region. Many people were worried about Lingtian, the new guardian of Zoroastrianism in the western region. After all, the supreme elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism was not an ordinary person. He was the supreme elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the person ranked second on the Supreme Saint ranking. He was only second to Nyewu Tian, the strongest person in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Just when the people from the western region were worried about Duan Lingtian, from the Zoroastrianism side, there was another piece of news. Big news. When the group of Zhuangzi Buddhism experts led by Lang Qianjin, the supreme elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, arrived, the 5 guardians of the holy sect, including guardian Ling Tian, charged forward under the leadership of the holy sect leader, Tang Xian. When Lang Qianjin asked Tang Xian for Ling Tian, Tang Xian's attitude was firm. He would rather fight with Lang Qianjin than hand over Ling Tian. Soon after, the 2 powerhouses at the 9th form of the Saint's celestial stage began to fight. They fought from the Zoroastrianism's estate to a faraway place. For a moment, the 5 remaining guardians of Zoroastrianism, the patriarch of Zhuangzi Buddhism, and the 2 guardian kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism were at loggerheads with each other. At this moment, the helpers that Zhuangzi Buddhism had invited appeared. This helper was none other than Hao Shuang, who was widely acknowledged as the strongest person in the Tao Martial Saint land, who was ranked 5th on the Supreme Saint ranking. At this moment, Hao Shuang even took out the Dharma Rod, one of the 10 great Super Saint weapons on the 10 great Saint weapons ranking. The scales of victory were tilted in Zhuangzi Buddhism's favor. As for the matter of Duan Ling Tian defeating Hao Shuang with just 1 strike, it had also spread out in the western region. Once this matter was spread out, it naturally caused a commotion that was akin to an earthquake. My goodness! Guardian Ling Tian from the Saint sect is really strong, right? He actually defeated Hao Shuang, who has the Dharma Rod, a Super Saint weapon, with just a single strike. Before that, Hao Shuang was widely acknowledged as the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint's celestial stage in the Tao Martial Saint land. Rumor has it that Hao Shuang would have died if it wasn't for Guardian Ling Tian, who didn't kill him. I heard that Guardian Ling Tian didn't kill Hao Shuang because he knew the devil clans from the land of exile were about to invade the upper province. He didn't want the humans to lose any more powerhouses. I've decided. From today onward, Guardian Ling Tian is my idol. Guardian Ling Tian rose to fame after this battle. He'll replace Hao Shuang and be ranked 5th on the Supreme Saint ranking. He'll also become the strongest person below the 9th form of the Saint's celestial stage in the Tao Martial Saint land. If it was said that Duan Ling Tian's name was like a thunderclap before this, Duan Ling Tian's name was already well known. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian's name was well known in the western region, and at the same time, he was worthy of respect and reverence. One could imagine this. As the news that had just spread in the western region spread to the entire upper province of the Tao Martial Saint land, Duan Ling Tian would definitely gain the attention of the people in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saint land. Although the news had not spread, Duan Ling Tian's name had caused quite a commotion in the Tao Martial Saint land. Just like the sectless cultivator's world. When news of Duan Ling Tian returning to the Zoroastrianism and becoming a guardian of the Zoroastrianism spread, it shocked the sectless cultivators in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saint land. In just one night, the legend of the number 1 prodigy in the Tao Martial Saint land was shattered. A new number 1 prodigy in the Tao Martial Saint land was born. It was the new guardian of the Zoroastrianism, Duan Ling Tian. In the sectless cultivators' world, Duan Ling Tian was no stranger to them. Previously, when the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet, appeared in the lower province, it had caused a commotion in the upper province as well. It had attracted many sectless cultivators to the lower province. For this reason, the sectless cultivators' world knew about Duan Ling Tian's background. They knew Duan Ling Tian was not even 50 years old yet. He was not even 50 years old, but he was already a guardian of the Zoroastrianism. Only those at the 7th form of the Saint's celestial stage or above could become a guardian of the Zoroastrianism. It said that the new guardian of the Zoroastrianism, Duan Ling Tian, is not just an ordinary powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint's celestial stage. Even the former leader of the 3 guardians of the Zoroastrianism, Guardian Zifeng, admitted that he's not as strong as Duan Ling Tian. Guardian Zifeng of the Zoroastrianism is at the 8th form of the Saint's celestial stage. Although he's not as strong as Lord Pei Si Hai, he's still a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint's celestial stage. He's much stronger than most powerhouses at the 7th form of the Saint's celestial stage. Based on this, even if Duan Ling Tian is not as strong as Lord Pei Si Hai, he's not far away from him. He's not even 50 years old yet. Even the Seckless cultivators could not doubt Duan Lingtian's innate talent and strength. Based on Duan Lingtian's current achievements, he was worthy of being called the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Even if Duan Lingtian had a fortuitous encounter that gave him his current achievements, Duan Lingtian was still a genius. In other words, Pei Si-hai was not a genius. Did Pei Si-hai not have a fortuitous encounter as well? However, the independent cultivators did not know that there was an even more shocking piece of news waiting for them to be further shocked and horrified. At that time, they would find out. Even now, in terms of strength, Duan Lingtian, the guardian of Zoroastrianism, was much stronger than Pei Si-hai, who was widely acknowledged as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Somewhere in the northern region of the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. The northern region of the northern region was covered in snow all year round. Some of the lakes were covered in a thick layer of ice that was enough for people to walk on. On the surface of a vast lake that had turned into ice, a small wooden hut stood there quietly. A person sat cross-legged in the air in front of the wooden house. It was a middle-aged man dressed in tattered clothes. He was tall and sturdy. His messy hair draped over his shoulders, making him look unruly and valiant. Initially, the middle-aged man's eyes were still closed. However, at this moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the sky in the distance. There was a tall and handsome young man in azure clothes standing in the air. He imperceptibly emitted an extremely fierce aura. It was as if he wasn't a person but a saber. The young man's long hair was tied up in a ponytail. He carried a sheathed saber on his back. The scabbard was plain and unadorned. The inscriptions on the scabbard exuded an ancient aura as though they were saying to the surroundings, "You've been here for a very long time. It has existed for a very long time." Pei Si-hai. When the middle-aged man saw the young man, he rose to his feet and appeared in front of the young man in just a blink of an eye. Based on the way the middle-aged man addressed the young man, it was obvious who the latter was. The young man was none other than Pei Si-hai, who was ranked 7th on the Supreme Saint ranking. Wang Zheng. Pei Si-hai looked at the middle-aged man solemnly. "I'm here to see if I can survive 10 moves from you." Based on Pei Si-hai's words, the middle-aged man was shocked. He had fought with the middle-aged man in the past, but he could not even survive 10 moves from the middle-aged man. If this news spread out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. This was because even Hao Shuang, the Seckless cultivator who was ranked 5th on the Supreme Saint ranking, did not dare to say he could defeat Pei Si-hai in 10 moves. However, this middle-aged man was not famous in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land even though he could defeat Pei Si-hai in 10 moves. Let alone being in the top 10 of the Supreme Saint ranking, his name was not even among the 1,000 names on the Supreme Saint ranking. This was enough to prove that he was not famous. He was a reclusive powerhouse who rarely appeared in the outside world. As a hidden expert, no matter how strong he was, as long as he didn't show his strength in front of others, no one would spread his name. Generally, he wouldn't be known by the world. For example, Pei Si-hai from a few years ago had entered the 7th place on the Supreme Saint ranking as soon as he showed himself to the world. Before this, nobody knew about his existence. His name was not among the 1,000 names on the Supreme Saint ranking as well. Pei Si-hai, I heard there's a genius in the Zoroastrianism. He's not even 50 years old, but his strength is not inferior to a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Your title as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land has changed hands. The middle-aged man, Wang Zheng, did not reply to Pei Si-hai immediately. Instead, he smiled mockingly. "Humph." Pei Si-hai snorted when he heard Wang Zheng's words. "There's always someone better than me. I've never thought of myself as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land." "Don't be so humble. Before that brat from the Zoroastrianism appeared, you were indeed worthy of the title as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land." Wang Zheng shook his head and smiled. Chang. Chapter 2219. Come on. Seemingly knowing that Pei Si-hai was getting impatient, Wang Jing shook his head again with a smile before replying with a serious expression. Buzz. Suddenly, a heavy and ear-piercing sound of a saber rang out. Pei Sihai's figure swayed, and he made his move in time. His body moved with his saber like a ghost. At the same time, Wang Jing made his move as well. However, he did not use any weapons. He fought with Pei Sihai with his physical body. Bang! Bang! Wang Zheng's iron fists shot out like two cannonballs. They were swift and powerful, causing ripples to appear in the void. It looked as though it would shatter at any time. Buzz! 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 Pei Sihai's saber seemed simple, but it contained the mystery of turning complexity into simplicity. The saber chi swept out as though it could destroy everything. Bang! 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 Wang Zheng's fists looked simpler than Pei Sihai's saber. Those who could not see through it would think that he was using the techniques of a street gangster. 1 move. 2 moves. 3 moves. 9 moves. Wang Zheng's fist landed on Pei Sihai's saber and knocked it out of his hand. When the saber was smashed to the ground, Pei Sihai's hands that were holding the saber were covered in blood and flesh. It was glaring and terrifying. 9 moves. However, after Pei Sihai slightly stopped the bleeding on his hands, he did not care about his hands anymore. He just stood there and muttered with a dull look in his eyes. Pei Sihai seemed to be muttering to himself, but in fact, he was replaying the scene of his fight with Wang Zheng in his mind. He seemed to be trying to comprehend something. After Wang Zheng knocked Pei Sihai's saber out of his hand, he stopped. When he saw that Pei Sihai was in a daze, he did not disturb him. Instead, he returned to the void where he sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, ignoring Pei Sihai's presence. About an hour later, Pei Sihai's body trembled as he regained his senses amidst the heavy snow. After he put his saber away, he looked at Wang Zheng, who was sitting cross-legged in the void, and said in a deep voice, "I'll definitely be able to withstand 10 moves from you in 2 weeks. I'll wait and see." Wang Zheng didn't open his eyes, and only responded lazily. It wasn't until Pei Sihai left that he opened his eyes. With a bitter smile on his face, he muttered, "This kid's progress is getting bigger and bigger. Next time, it will be almost impossible to defeat him within 10 moves." Snow continued to fall in the northern region as though the sky was covered in a layer of white. Wang Zheng closed his eyes again and sat cross-legged in the void like a statue. In the Human Devil Saint City in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the lower province. Although Duan Lingtian had caused quite a commotion at the entrance of the city, it was not a big deal to the Human Devil Saint City. After entering the Human Devil Saint City, Duan Lingtian was shocked by what he saw. As expected of a city that's bigger than Sin City in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the city's layout and prosperity far surpassed Sin City. After entering Sin City, Duan Lingtian decided to stay in a good inn to take care of his daughter and wife. The city built by the Human Devil clan was no different from a human city. There were restaurants, inns, gambling dens, and brothels. It was a dazzling sight. Within the inn, the 2 rooms Duan Lingtian booked were 2 spacious courtyards that were adjacent to each other. One of the courtyards was, naturally, for his family. As for the other courtyard, it was reserved for Ker's sister, Gan Ru Yen. After settling in, Duan Lingtian finally woke up his daughter, Duan Si Ling, who was in his arms. The little girl was 9 years old now. Her face was fair and delicate. Although she was young, she was already a beauty. Based on this, one could tell the little girl would be a beauty that could topple a nation when she grew up. Ugh. When the little girl opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Duan Ling'an. To her, Duan Lingtian was a stranger whom she was meeting for the first time. However, when she saw Duan Lingtian for the first time, she blinked her big eyes and said without any unfamiliarity, "Father, are you done with your work? Mother misses you a lot. Si Ling misses you a lot as well." The little girl was not shy at all. Perhaps, it was due to the blood ties between her and Duan Lingtian that made it difficult for her to distance herself from Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian was prepared for his daughter to push him away. After all, this was his daughter's first time seeing him. He did not expect his daughter to recognize him with just a glance. Moreover, She was sensible enough to tell him that her mother missed him a lot. For a moment, Duan Lingtian felt his heart skip a beat. Tears welled up in his eyes. Si Ling, how did you recognize me? After a long while, Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and suppressed the emotions in his heart before he asked Duan Si Ling with a smile on his face. His gaze softened as he looked at Duan Si Ling. It was as though he could melt her heart. Daddy is so stupid, Duan Si Ling said playfully to Duan Lingtian. Then she looked at Kerr, who was standing next to Duan Lingtian, and continued to say, Mother, Daddy is so stupid. He doesn't know Si Lingtian can see him every day. Duan Lingtian was stunned when he heard Duan Si Ling's words. He could not help but look at Kerr. Si Lingtian can see him every day? What was going on? Kerr's face flushed red when she heard Duan Si Ling's words. Si Ling, tell your father why you said Si Ling can see him every day? Kerr said to Duan Si Ling. Okay, Duan Si Ling replied. Then she looked at Duan Lingtian and pouted as she said to Duan Lingtian, Daddy, you're so stupid. Don't you know Si Lingtian can see your portrait every day? Also, Si Ling knows how to draw Daddy's portrait, but it's not as good as Mother's portrait. Si Ling could see him every day. At this moment, Duan Lingtian finally understood everything. When he looked at Kerr again, his eyes were filled with gentleness and tenderness. Then, Si Ling, are you happy to see Daddy in the flesh? Duan Lingtian asked Duan Si Ling with a smile. I'm happy. Duan Si Ling nodded her head like a chick pecking at grains as she answered Duan Lingtian firmly, Daddy, you can play with Mother and me now that you're back? Also, Mother said you're a great hero. Now that you're back, you can protect Mother and me. We don't have to live in a cold house anymore. Yes. With Daddy here, Si Ling won't have to live in a cold house anymore. When Duan Lingtian heard his daughter's words, he hugged her tightly as tears of shame rolled down his cheeks. Naturally, he knew what his daughter meant by a cold place. It must be the prison in the Zoroastrianism's punishment hall. At this moment, Duan Lingtian made a promise inwardly. He swore he would make it up to Kerr and his daughter in the future. Duan Si Ling was a little girl after all. After a while, she began to look around. Where's Auntie? Where's Auntie? It was obvious she was looking for Kerr's sister, Gan Ru Yen. After sending Kerr to Gan Ru Yen, Duan Lingtian returned and hugged her tightly in his arms. He said sincerely, Kerr, thank you. Thank you for teaching our daughter so well. Brother Tian, you said she's our daughter. This is what I should do. Kerr said softly as she lay in Duan Lingtian's arms. In the end, her face turned even redder as she said emotionally, Kerr is very happy right now. I hope this moment will last forever. I hope so too. Duan Lingtian nodded as well. At this moment, apart from Kerr, he also felt the same way. At some point, both of them were kissing passionately. After a round of lovemaking, while Kerr was still asleep, Duan Lingtian extended his divine consciousness into Kerr's soul. He wanted to see the seal on Kerr's soul. To be more precise, he wanted to see the seal on Kerr's innate spiritual root. After all, he had heard that Kerr possessed a violet innate spiritual root. However, due to the seal, her innate talent was concealed and could not shine as brightly as it should. However, when Duan Lingtian probed Kerr's innate spiritual root with his divine consciousness, he did not find any seal. It's really a violet innate spiritual root. Although Duan Lingtian had long heard that Kerr possessed a violet innate spiritual root, he could not help but feel excited when he saw it for himself. And it's a dark purple spirit root. In addition, Duan Lingtian discovered something else. Kerr's innate spiritual root was so dark that it was almost black. It was almost at the limit of the grade of innate spiritual root. After a while, Duan Lingtian subconsciously probed Kerr's cultivation. However, he discovered that Kerr's cultivation base had already entered the divine saint stage at some point in time. Although she was still a distance away from the saint celestial stage, it was already very ridiculous compared to her previous cultivation base. When was Kerr's seal broken? Regarding this, Duan Lingtian was also deeply puzzled. Although he was puzzled, he did not think about waking Kerr up to get to the bottom of this. I'll ask her when she wakes up. However, Duan Lingtun was genuinely happy for Kerr when he learned that the seal on her innate spiritual root had been broken. Now that I no longer have the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, I can no longer enjoy the assistance of the time flow on the 4th level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda. This is equivalent to my cultivation speed being 10 times slower than before. When Duan Lingtian thought of this, he could not help but smile wryly. I'm afraid the only way to increase my cultivation speed is to raise the grade of my innate spiritual root. Chapter 22:20. In the past, ever since Duan Lingtian had opened the 4th level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, his cultivation speed had increased by 10 times due to the time flow inside. However, Duan Lingtian knew the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda was destroyed. The 7 treasures exquisite pagoda had been destroyed. For this reason, he could no longer rely on the time flow in the 4th level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda to cultivate. He could only rely on his own innate talent to cultivate. Hua Lao. When Duan Lingtian thought about the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, he could not help but think about Hua Lao, the weapon spirit of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda. His eyes dimmed. Duan Lingtian knew Hua Lao was dead. Hua Lao had died when the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda was destroyed. After a long while, Duan Lingtian took a deep breath before he regained his senses. At the same time, the sadness in his eyes disappeared. Hua Lao, don't worry. Since you sacrificed your life for mine, I'll cherish it even more. Even without the help of the time flow from the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, I'll still cultivate as hard as I can so that I can break through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage as soon as possible and become stronger so that I can protect the people around me and my family. Duan Lingtian's eyes became even more determined when he thought about this. So what if he lost the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda? Could he still become a cripple? His innate spiritual root was a violet innate spiritual root even though it was only a light violet one. Although the innate spiritual roots of the devils are generally inferior, it won't improve my innate spiritual root much if I devour them. However, if the quality is lacking, I can make up for it with quantity. As long as I kill more devils, I won't have to worry about my innate spiritual root improving. If 1 isn't enough, I'll kill 10. If 10 isn't enough, I'll kill 100. If 100 isn't enough, I'll kill 1,000. If 1,000 isn't enough, I'll kill 10,000. If 10,000 isn't enough, I'll kill 100,000. Thinking of this, Duan Lingtian's eyes revealed a cold light. He might feel pressured to kill his own kind for no reason. However, he didn't feel any pressure when killing demons. Kerr. Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian's gaze fell on the sleeping Kerr. His gaze was incomparably resolute. I promise you that you and I will never leave each other's side. I will never let you leave me again. Duan Lingtian made a promise in his heart. He would never let Kerr leave him again. Being separated from Kerr for more than 10 years was undoubtedly a great torture for Duan Lingtian. He had had enough of that kind of torment, so he would not let Kerr leave him again. He didn't want to experience that feeling of separation ever again. This woman was the woman he would use his entire life to protect. After a while, Duan Lingtian finally regained his senses. He sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. At the same time, he circulated the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique and continuously absorbed the heaven and earth spirit energy to cultivate. After circulating his chi for 1 major cycle, slow. It's too slow. This was Duan Lingtian's first time cultivating since he returned to the lower province. Although he was mentally prepared, he still found it difficult to accept. He suddenly stopped cultivating. This was because his current cultivation speed was simply too slow. Although the human devil Saint City he was currently in was located where the Azure Cloud Mansion used to be, and it occupied the Saint Stone Reserve that used to belong to the Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province, the cultivation environment here was considered one of the best in the lower province. However, the cultivation environment here was incomparable to the cultivation environment in the upper province. Coupled with the fact that Duan Lingtian no longer had the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, the difference between the two was huge. It was far beyond his estimation. It seems like I have to hurry up and improve my innate spiritual root, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Although his current innate spiritual root was violet, it was only a light violet innate spiritual root. It was on a completely different level from Kerr's dark violet innate spiritual root. Moreover, the difference between a light violet innate spiritual root and a dark violet innate spiritual root was much greater than the difference between a light violet innate spiritual root and a dark violet innate spiritual root. If I can improve my innate spiritual root from a light violet to a dark violet, my cultivation speed would be almost the same as when I had the 7 Treasures exquisite pagoda. Duan Lingtian felt much better when he thought of this. Then, Duan Lingtian continued to cultivate. Duan Lingtian only stopped cultivating when Kerr woke up the next morning. Kerr, I noticed that the seal on your innate spiritual root seems to have been removed. Do you know when it was removed? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. It must have been removed when the sect leader of Zoroastrianism brought me away from the enforcement hall. After that, I felt that my cultivation speed has increased a lot. Kerr, naturally, had nothing to hide in front of Duan Lingtian. After that, I heard from my sister that I have a violet innate spiritual root. That's when I realized my innate talent is so good. An excited smile appeared on Kerr's face when she reached the end of her sentence. In the future, I'll be able to help you once my cultivation base has improved. She had always wanted to follow in her man's footsteps and help him. However, along the way, her strength was left further and further behind by her man. In the end, she could not even catch up to him. Although she didn't show it on the surface, she was very disappointed in her heart. For this reason, when she learned from her sister, Gan Ru Yen, that she possessed a violet innate spiritual root, she was very excited. She felt it was a pity that her innate spiritual root had been sealed. Later on, when she discovered her cultivation speed had increased rapidly, she realized the seal on her innate spiritual root had been removed. At that time, she was so excited that she could not sleep. She even tried her best to raise her cultivation base to the divine saint stage in a short time. She was only a step away from the exemplary saint stage. As long as she broke through to the exemplary saint stage and the quintessential saint stage, she would only be a step away from the saint's celestial stage. It's more than just helping me. With Kerr's current innate talent, if my innate talent doesn't improve, you'll definitely surpass me in 10 years. Duan Lingtian said with a smile as he hugged Kerr emotionally. Improve my innate talent. Kerr was stunned when she heard Duan Lingtian's words. Duan Lingtian nodded before he began to explain the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, to Kerr. Devouring other people's innate spiritual roots to improve one's own innate spiritual root. There's actually such an assistive divine ability? At this moment, even Kerr was shocked. After a while, the shock in Kerr's heart gradually eased up, and when she looked at Duan Lingtian again, there was only adoration in her eyes. Duan Lingtian enjoyed Kerr's gaze of adoration very much. After all, she was his woman. It was undoubtedly a very happy thing for a man to be worshipped by his own woman. More than half of the human devil clans from the land of exile had gathered in the human devil saint city. For this reason, it was bustling with people and carriages everywhere. Father, what's this? Father, this looks good. I want it. Father, I want to buy that. Melodious sounds that sounded like silver bells rang out one after another, becoming a major feature of the noisy street. The person who had spoken was a little girl who looked to be about 8 or 9 years old. The little girl was in the arms of a purple-clad young man. As the young man walked on the street, the little girl excitedly pointed at the stalls on the street and asked for this and that. Every time the young man heard the little girl's words, he would dotingly pat her head and buy all kinds of things for her. In addition, beside this young man, there were 2 women who looked exactly the same. The women were so beautiful that they could cause the downfall of a nation. Their auras were extraordinary and otherworldly as though they were celestial beings. Along the way, he unsurprisingly attracted the attention of many people. The group of 4 was none other than Duan Lingtian, his daughter, his wife, Kerr, and Kerr's sister, Gan Ru Yen. After staying in the inn for a few days, Duan Lingtian decided to bring them out for a walk. He also wanted to ask around for information. A blissful smile appeared on Ker's beautiful face when she saw Duan Lingtian and his daughter getting along so well. At this moment, she felt as though she was the happiest woman in the world. On the other hand, Gan Ruyen looked at Duan Lingtian with a complicated expression on her face. No one knew what she was thinking. Si Ling, your mother and aunt must be tired from walking around. Shall we look for a restaurant to eat? After walking around for a while, Duan Lingtian asked his daughter with a doting smile on his face. Sure, sure. Duan Si Ling nodded obediently like a little chick pecking at rice. Duan Lingtian purposely went to the most luxurious restaurant near the center of the Human Devil Saint City. He asked for a private room that was close to the main hall before he brought his 3 daughters into the room. The reason he chose such a restaurant was because there were many people here. Perhaps he would be able to find out what he wanted to know. The dishes were served. 15 minutes passed, but there was no result. Half an hour passed, but there was still no result. An hour passed, but there was still no result. Father, why aren't we going back since we're done eating? About an hour and a half later, Duan Si Ling asked Duan Lingtian. As soon as Duan Si Ling finished speaking, a voice rang in the air. Duan Lingtian nodded. Suddenly, Chapter 22-21. Have you heard? A ruin that's suspected to be left behind by a celestial grade saint inscription master has appeared. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up when he heard this. His breathing quickened immediately. Celestial grade saint inscription master. He was not unfamiliar with this term. Moreover, when he heard this term, he immediately thought of the 10 super saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking. Previously, he had heard someone mention it. The 10 super saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking were also known as 10,000 inscription saint weapons. They were all created by a celestial grade saint inscription master. That celestial grade saint inscription master was the only celestial grade saint inscription master in the history of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Otherwise, there would not be only 10 super saint weapons in the Dao Martial Saint Land. What? Celestial grade saint inscription master? The celestial grade saint inscription master who was said to be the only one in the history of the Dao Martial Saint Land? That's him. It's said that the celestial grade saint inscription master left behind 10 super saint weapons for humans. One of the super saint weapons is called the Devil Seal Tablet. It's a super saint weapon that's used to restrain devil cultivators and our devil clans. I've heard about the Devil Seal Tablet as well. It's a terrifying super saint weapon that's extremely effective against our devil clans. Even a powerhouse at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage from our devil clans would definitely die if he faced a powerhouse at the first form of the Saint Celestial stage who possesses the Devil Seal Tablet. Let alone a powerhouse at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage, even a powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage wouldn't dare to fight a powerhouse at the first form of the Saint Celestial stage who possesses the Devil Seal Tablet. I heard the Devil Seal Tablet was originally in the hands of the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the Debussy Subterranean. However, it was snatched away by someone from the Upper Province and brought to the Upper Province. That damn person from the Upper Province. If he didn't snatch the Devil Seal Tablet away, our devil clans would have snatched the Devil Seal Tablet away from the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion and destroyed it. Speaking of the Azure Cloud Mansion, the Human Devil Saint City is located in the Azure Cloud Mansion's estate. More and more members of the Human Devil clan joined in the conversation when one of them brought up the topic of Celestial Saint Inscription Masters. It had been quite some time since the Devil clans arrived in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Many devils would use the soul-searching secret tactic when they killed humans. For this reason, they were very familiar with the rumors in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Among them, there were rumors about celestial grade saint inscription masters and the 10 super saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking. Among the 10 super saint artifacts in the Martial Saint Land, the devil race cared about the most was undoubtedly the Devil Seal Tablet. As for the other super saint weapons, even the super saint weapon that was ranked first in the Dao Martial Saint Land, they did not pay much attention to it. This was because the Devil Seal Tablet was a super saint weapon that could restrain the devil clan. Azure Cloud Mansion? When the group of human devils mentioned the Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Lingtian perked up his ears and listened intently. Even Kerr and Gan Ru Yen listened intently. Gan Ru Yen even made a shushing gesture at Duan Si Ling. Duan Si Ling sensibly shut her mouth and did not say anything else. She was very obedient. Gradually, Duan Lingtian learned a lot of useful information from the group of human devils outside. The people from the Azure Cloud Mansion had already retreated when the Human Devil Clan's army arrived. There were no casualties at all. When Duan Lingtian and Kerr learned about this, they could not help but heave a sigh of relief. There were no casualties at all in the Azure Cloud Mansion. This meant that their friends and family were safe. This was undoubtedly the best news for them. Currently, they could finally relax. There was no need for them to worry anymore. More than half of the Human Devil Clan's vanguard troops were killed or injured. Duan Lingtian, Kerr, and Gan Ru Yen were stunned when they heard this news. The Azure Cloud Mansion killed more than half of the Human Devil Clan's vanguard troops? If it wasn't for the Human Devil Clan's army, the Human Devil Clan's vanguard troops would have been annihilated? Duan Lingtian was completely dumbfounded. Since when did the Azure Cloud Mansion become so powerful? Even if the Human Devil Clan's vanguard troops did not have powerhouses at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage or above, there should be many powerhouses with different cultivation bases. Even then, they were almost annihilated by the Azure Cloud Mansion. Duan Lingtian was still in a daze. Brother Tian, is the Azure Cloud Mansion really that powerful? Kerr could not help but ask. Currently, Kerr was no longer the Kerr of the past. Ever since she had arrived in the upper province, Kerr's knowledge had increased. Naturally, she knew what it meant for the Azure Cloud Mansion to kill more than half of the Human Devil Clan's vanguard troops. Impossible! Gan Ru Yen said bluntly. It was impossible for the Azure Cloud Mansion to be so powerful. I don't know. When Duan Lingtian heard Kerr's words, it took him a while to regain his senses. When he regained his senses, he shook his head with difficulty. He still could not figure it out. How did the Azure Cloud Mansion become so powerful? After thinking about it for a long time, Duan Lingtian still could not figure it out. In the end, he decided to stop thinking about it. There must be a reason. As for the reason, I'll find out when I reunite with Father, Mother, and little Fei in the future. It was precisely because of this that Duan Lingtian did not think too much about it. No matter what, I can confirm that they're fine. I've already achieved my goal of coming to the Human Devil Saint City. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. This time, he had entered the Human Devil Holy City to inquire about his family and friends, and to confirm whether they were safe or not. Now that he had confirmed their safety, he was, naturally, at ease. After Father, Mother, and the others left the Azure Cloud Mansion, they should return to the Cloud Continent. After all, the cultivation environment on the Cloud Continent is far inferior to the Debussy subterranean. The stronger devil clans won't bother to go there. As for the weaker devil clans, with the Azure Cloud Mansion's strength that can kill half of the Human Devil Clan's vanguard, I don't think they're afraid of us. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he felt completely at ease. At the same time, more news about the Celestial Grade Saint Inscription Master rang in Duan Lingtian's ears. Coincidentally, the news was the ruin left behind by the Celestial Grade Saint Inscription Master happened to be in the south. In other words, if he wanted to return to the Cloud Continent, he would have to pass by there. Let's return to the Cloud Continent. Duan Lingtian made up his mind immediately. And this was also his main goal. As for the ruin left behind by the Celestial Grade Saint Inscription Master, he could take a look at it. If he could confirm there was an inheritance left behind by the Celestial Grade Saint Inscription Master, he planned to explore it. After all, the inheritance left behind by the Celestial Grade Saint Inscription Master was related to the secret of inscribing 10,000 inscriptions saint weapons, also known as Super Saint weapons. If he could obtain the inheritance, he might be able to inscribe Super Saint weapons as well. At that time, he would be able to give one to his family and friends to raise their strength. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he felt excited again. He seemed to have forgotten something. If it was possible to inscribe Super Saint weapons, How could the celestial grade saint inscription master only inscribe a few? However, even if I can't confirm there's an inheritance left behind by the celestial grade saint inscription master, I can still go in. Who knows if there's another super saint weapon in there? Perhaps I'll be able to find a super saint sword? The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, his heart was filled with eagerness again. At this moment, he realized he had lost a lot of celestial treasures. Although he still had the sun-shooting bow, a celestial supreme treasure, in his possession, it was incomplete. Moreover, it was still a bow. It could not be used with his supreme sword Dao mental cultivation method, the sovereign heart sword. Forget it. I'll just go in there myself. Duan Lingtian overturned his previous decision and made another decision. As it turned out, he planned to bring the three ladies back to his hometown, the Cloud Continent. If he was certain he wanted to go to the ruin left behind by the celestial grade saint inscription master, he would send the three ladies to a safe place. If he did not want to go, he would bring the three ladies back to the Cloud Continent. However, he planned to explore the ruin left behind by the celestial grade saint inscription master. When I was in the upper province, I heard the celestial grade saint inscription master left behind an inheritance. I wonder if the inheritance is in the ruin left behind by the celestial grade saint inscription master? However, even if it's not in the ruin, I still have to go in. Who knows, I might be able to obtain a sword-type super saint weapon. Duan Lingtian told Kerr that he was going to do it. Then, he brought the three ladies to another inn. This inn was the best in the Human Devil Saint City. It belonged to the Crimson Blaze Palace, one of the 9 great forces in the Human Devil clan. The first-class rooms here were protected by an isolation formation. Even if the devil chi in the three ladies' bodies dissipated completely, as long as they did not come out, nobody would be able to tell they were humans. Moreover, there were powerhouses from the Crimson Blaze Palace guarding the inn, so there was no need to worry about their safety. For this reason, Duan Lingtian decided to let the three ladies stay here. "Daddy, where are you going?" Duan Siling asked as she looked at Duan Lingtian with her big, innocent eyes. "Good girl, Siling, Daddy has something to do. Stay here with Mother and Auntie for a few days and wait for Daddy to come back, okay?" Duan Lingtian patted Duan Siling's head affectionately. "Hey, Siling will wait for Daddy to come back. Daddy, come back soon." Duan Siling nodded obediently. "Brother Tian, I'll wait for you to come back," Kerr said as she looked at Duan Lingtian. Chapter 22-22. After leaving the Human Devil Saint City, Duan Lingtian and the group of human devils made their way south. As the ruin left behind by the celestial grade saint inscription master was exposed, more and more human devils were leaving the Human Devil Saint City and making their way south. That's good as well. I don't have to look for it myself. Duan Lingtian thought to himself as he watched the human devils leave the Human Devil Saint City in a grandiose manner. Duan Lingtian followed the group of human devils as they made their way south. "Hey, brother, are you going to the ruin left behind by the celestial grade saint inscription master as well?" A voice rang in Duan Lingtian's ears as soon as he had flown for a distance. Soon after, a person appeared next to Duan Lingtian and flew side by side with Duan Lingtian. "Are you calling for me?" Duan Lingtian asked as he turned to look at the person who was staring at him. The person who appeared next to Duan Lingtian was a young man who was dressed in brocade robes and had an extraordinary bearing. Duan Lingtian did not know why. When Duan Lingtian looked at the young man, he did not feel the disgust he usually felt when he saw a human devil. In fact, he felt a sense of closeness instead. It felt as though the person standing in front of him was not a human devil, but a human like him. Yes. The young man was handsome. When he smiled, he gave off the feeling of a boy next door. He was worlds apart from the human devils Duan Lingtian had seen so far. Out of curiosity, Duan Lingtian extended his divine consciousness. He discovered that the young man was a human devil saint. Although the young man's body was rich and pure, there was no trace of the devil clan's bloodline in him at all. It was as though he was a human through and through. This was completely different from the human devils Duan Lingtian had investigated before. When probing these human devils, in addition to discovering a rich and pure devil chi in their bodies, they could also discover that their devil race bloodlines were mixed with human bloodlines. But now, the bloodline of this brocade-robed young man was extremely pure, just like his own. In other words, this young man in embroidered clothes was a pure human. Is something the matter? Duan Lingtian looked at the young man and asked, "Brother, you don't seem to be from the Wandering Saint Palace, right?" asked the brocade-robed young man with a smile. Wandering Saint Palace? Upon hearing the young man's words, Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow and asked, You're from the Wandering Saint Palace? Duan Lingtian had heard about the Wandering Saint Palace more than once when he was in the Human Devil Saint City. The Wandering Saint Palace was one of the 3 palaces in the Human Devil clan's 3 palaces and 6 halls. It was as famous as the Crimson Blaze Palace in the inn he had brought Kerr and the others to. It was also one of the top forces in the Human Devil clan. The Wandering Saint Palace was also an anomaly in the Human Devil clan. This was because everyone in the Wandering Saint Palace, from the palace master to the ordinary disciples, was a human. To be more precise, they were all human devil cultivators. In the Human Devil clan and the entire devil clans in the land of exile, most of the devil cultivators with pure human bloodline were from the Wandering Saint Palace. The Wandering Saint Palace was established after the first Human Devil Order era. At that time, a group of devil cultivators had followed the devil clans back to the land of exile. Some of the devil cultivators had gathered together and formed a force. There was a very strict rule in this faction. No matter who it was, they could only mate with a human devil cultivator. Once they mated with a devil cultivator, they would be expelled. For this reason, there were only devil cultivators with pure human bloodline in the Wandering Saint Palace. The Wandering Saint Palace was one of the reasons the Human Devil clan was ostracized by the other devil clans. The devil cultivators in the Wandering Saint Palace did not possess the bloodline of the devil clans. They were all pure humans. Due to the fact that humans were born with higher innate talents than demons, this force had rapidly developed and expanded in the Banished Lands. Today, the Wandering Saint Palace had become one of the most powerful forces in the Human Devil clan. This force was none other than the Wandering Saint Palace. The Wandering Saint Palace was the last force to arrive at the Dvusii subterranean among the Human Devil clan's 3 palaces and 6 halls. Many human devils said the Wandering Saint Palace chose to leave the land of exile after the Human Devil clan had secured a foothold in the Dao Martial Saint land because they didn't want to kill their own kind. If there was one force in the Human Devil clan that Duan Lingtian did not oppose, it would be the Wandering Saint Palace. This was because the Wandering Saint Palace did not participate in the killing of humans. Moreover, the people in the Wandering Saint Palace were all humans with pure human bloodlines. The only difference was that they were all devil cultivators who had inherited the devil clan's legacies. Yes, I'm from the Wandering Saint Palace. My name is Huang Qiling. How should I address you, brother? The brocade-clad young man asked as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian did not disguise himself and did not plan to conceal his identity. Duan Lingtian? This name sounds a little familiar. Huang Qiling was stunned when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. Then, he smiled and greeted Duan Lingtian. So it's Brother Lingtian. Brother Lingtian, I feel like you're different from other human devils. You look like someone from the Wandering Saint Palace. Although Huang Qiling did not probe Duan Lingtian's bloodline, he had spent a lot of time with people from the Wandering Saint Palace and human devils. Therefore, he could tell the difference between humans and human devils. Based on Duan Lingtian's temperament and the obscure aura he emitted, he could tell Duan Lingtian was a pure human. Naturally, he could also vaguely sense the pure devil chi on Duan Lingtian's body. For this reason, he was certain Duan Lingtian was not a human. Duan Lingtian was not a human from the Dao Martial Saint land. Instead, he was a human devil cultivator from the land of exile. For this reason, although Huang Qiling found the name Duan Lingtian familiar, he did not think that Duan Lingtian was a human from the Dao Martial Saint land. Therefore, it was impossible for him to see through Duan Lingtian's background. As far as I know, the people from the Wandering Saint Palace aren't the only ones with pure human bloodline in the land of exile, am I right? Duan Lingtian said. That's true. Huang Qiling nodded. Although the Wandering Saint Palace had gathered most of the devil cultivators with pure human bloodline in the land of exile, there were still some devil cultivators with pure human bloodline who wandered outside the land of exile. In the land of exile, the human devil clan would not accept such devil cultivators. They could only be sectless cultivators. Naturally, such devil cultivators were rare. For this reason, Huang Qiling took the initiative to greet Duan Lingtian. He thought Duan Lingtian was a sectless devil cultivator with pure human bloodline who wandered outside the land of exile. Brother Lingtian, I'm going to the ruin left behind by the human celestial grade saint inscription master. If you're going there as well, why don't we go together? Huang Qiling asked as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Before Duan Lingtian could reply, he added, please don't misunderstand. I don't have any ulterior motives. The devil cultivators with pure human bloodline I usually come into contact with are all from the Wandering Saint Palace. It's rare for me to meet a sectless cultivator like you, Brother Lingtian, so I'd like to have a chat with you. It's all right. Duan Lingtian did not sense any hostility from Huang Qiling. He could tell Huang Qiling had a good character, so he agreed to Huang Qiling's request. Moreover, he was not afraid even if Huang Qiling had ulterior motives. Huang Qiling's cultivation base was only at the third form of the Saint's celestial stage. He was not a threat to him at all. Just like that, Duan Lingtian gained a new companion. Along the way, Huang Qiling was the one who took the initiative to talk to him. Duan Lingtian learned more about the human devil clan from Huang Qiling. Most of it was about the Wandering Saint Palace where Huang Qiling was from. Huang Qiling also asked about Duan Lingtian's background. Duan Lingtian went with the flow and said he was a sectless cultivator from the land of exile who had always been alone. Huang Qiling did not doubt Huang Qiling's words since he already knew Duan Lingtian was lying. Brother Lingtian, if you're interested, you can join the Wandering Saint Palace. As long as you have a pure human bloodline, the Wandering Saint Palace won't reject you, Huang Qiling said with a smile. Huang Qiling said to Duan Lingtian with a smile, personally, I think there are many benefits to joining the Wandering Saint Palace. Naturally, it's all up to you. I'll consider your offer. Duan Lingtian nodded before he continued to say, however, the most important thing right now is to find the ruin left behind by the celestial grade saint inscription master. If you know where it is, let's hurry over. Brother Lingtian, I almost forgot about it if you didn't mention it. I know where it is. Let's hurry over. Huang Qiling sped up as soon as he finished speaking. His figure flashed as though he had transformed into a bolt of lightning. Initially, he did not speed up much because he wanted to take care of Duan Lingtian. However, when he realized Duan Lingtian was able to keep up with him easily, he sped up again. After increasing his speed a few times, he realized Duan Lingtian was able to keep up with him easily. He could not help but feel slightly surprised. I didn't expect junior brother Lingtian to be so strong as well. It seems like I can try moving at full speed. If he can't keep up with me, I'll slow down. After muttering to himself, Huang Qiling also activated his strength and moved at full speed. His speed was more than twice as fast as before. Huang Qiling, who thought he could leave Duan Lingtian behind and was feeling smug, was completely stunned when he heard the sound of wind whistling next to him. This, Huang Qiling discovered something. Chapter 22-23. It seems like I've misjudged you. Huang Qiling smiled wryly at Duan Lingtian when he saw Duan Lingtian easily catching up to him. Brother Lingtian, you're still able to keep up with me even though I'm traveling at full speed. This shows that you're much stronger than me, Brother Lingtian. I feel like you're not much older than me, Brother Lingtian. However, your cultivation base is much higher than mine. I'm really embarrassed. After all, I'm from the Wandering Saint Palace while you're just a sectless cultivator, Brother Lingtian. The wry smile on Huang Qiling's face widened when he reached the end of his sentence. Although devil cultivators like them who had inherited the devil clan's legacies could devour the vital energy and blood of other devils to improve their strength, there was still a bottleneck in the process. The bottleneck was directly affected by a devil cultivator's innate talent. The higher one's innate talent was, the stronger one would become after devouring the vital energy and blood of other devils. The reverse was also true. I was just lucky to have a fortuitous encounter. Duan Lingtian replied. Brother Lingtian, you're too humble. Huang Qi-ling, naturally, felt Duan Lingtian was being humble. After traveling for a while, more and more human devils appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes. We're here. After a while, Duan Lingtian saw a group of human devils coming to a halt. Huang Qi-ling's voice rang in his ears, causing him to look ahead. In front of them was a stone forest. There were all kinds of strange boulders in the stone forest. The shortest ones were only a few dozen meters tall, while the taller ones were hundreds of meters tall. There were even a few boulders that were thousands of meters tall, standing there like towering trees. At this moment, the group of human devils was rushing into the stone forest. They were like stones that had fallen into the sea, disappearing in just a blink of an eye. It was as though they did not even cause a ripple. They're in the stone forest? Duan Lingtian asked as he looked at Huang Qi-ling. I heard so. Huang Qi-ling nodded. His eyes lit up as he said, Let's go. Let's follow them and take a look. Duan Lingtian nodded. Just as Duan Lingtian was about to enter the stone forest with Huang Qi-ling, a voice rang out. 3 mocking voices rang out from behind them in a timely manner. Isn't that Huang Qi-ling? With your little bit of cultivation, you dare to come here and join in the fun. I advise you not to embarrass yourself. You're embarrassing the people from the Wandering Saint Palace. Accompanying the 3 voices were 3 young men wearing brocade robes like Huang Qi-ling. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Duan Lingtian and Huang Qi-ling, blocking their path. At the same time, the gazes of the 3 young men fell on Huang Qi-ling. Their gazes were filled with mockery and ridicule. Seeing the 3 of them, Huang Qi-ling's face immediately turned gloomy. A trace of anger and fear flashed in his eyes. Who are they? Duan Lingtian was, naturally, annoyed that someone was blocking his way. However, he still sent a voice transmission to Huang Qi-ling. They're also disciples of the Wandering Saint Palace. They're from the same generation as me. In the past, after Huang Qi-ling explained the situation to Duan Lingtian through voice transmission, Duan Lingtian finally understood the situation. The 3 young men in front of him were all good-for-nothings. They liked to play around with female disciples who had weak cultivation bases and had no background. Since their seniors were high-ranking officials in the Wandering Saint Palace, they would not be punished no matter how much trouble the female disciples caused. There was one time when Huang Qi-ling could not stand it anymore and taught them a lesson. Then, he would keep an eye on them and teach them a lesson if they dared to cause trouble. Because Huang Qi-ling's background was stronger than any of the 3 of them, even if the 3 of them had good backgrounds, they couldn't use them to bully Huang Qi-ling. They could only admit that their skills were not as good as Huang Qi-ling's, and could only hate Huang Qi-ling in their hearts. Due to an accident, Huang Qi-ling was severely injured and his saint veins were damaged. It was difficult for him to make any progress in his cultivation base. After that, his strength was surpassed by the 3 young men. At that time, the 3 of them began to seek revenge on Huang Qi-ling. Naturally, they did not dare to go too far due to Huang Qi-ling's background. However, they still mocked him verbally. Good for nothing. A sneer appeared on Duan Lingtian's face when he heard Huang Qi-ling's words. Huang Qi-ling? The person beside you. Is he your friend? One of the 3 young men in embroidered clothes looked at Duan Lingtian with a bloodthirsty gleam in his eyes. Upon hearing his words, the other 2 young men also looked at Duan Lingtian. When the 3 of them looked at Duan Lingtian, Huang Qi-ling's expression changed and he shouted coldly, I don't know him. He's not my friend. When Huang Qi-ling opened his mouth to shout coldly, he was also somewhat hysterical. At the same time, he moved in front of Duan Lingtian and stared at the 3 young men in front of him. Ha! When the 3 young men in embroidered robes heard Huang Qi-ling's shout and saw how he was trying to cover it up, they could not help but laugh as though they had heard the funniest joke in the world. Huang Qi-ling, since he's not your friend, let's kill him. That's right. Since you said he's not your friend, Let's kill him as prey for fun. Looks like we're going to have some fun today. After the three brocade-clad young men stopped laughing, they looked at Huang Qi-ling mockingly. Then, they looked at Duan Ling Tian, who was standing behind Huang Qi-ling in unison. It was as though they were hunters looking at their prey through the forest. Based on their words, it was clear they intended to kill Duan Ling Tian. Since Huang Qi-ling's background was stronger than theirs, they did not dare to make a move on him even if he was weaker than them. At most, they would mock him verbally. However, they had no qualms about killing Huang Qi-ling's friend. So what if they killed him? Would the high-ranking officials of the Wandering Saint Palace behind Huang Qi-ling get into a conflict with the high-ranking officials of the Wandering Saint Palace for an outsider? If you dare to touch him, I'll kill all of you. Huang Qi-ling's eyes turned cold when he heard the three young men's words. Although he and Duan Ling Tian could not be considered as friends, the reason Duan Ling Tian was in danger was because they were traveling together. For this reason, although he felt guilty, he did not want anything to happen to Duan Ling Tian. Chapter 22-24. Let me ask you three, Tom, Dick and Harry, do you want to kill me? The moment Duan Ling Tian's words left his mouth, the entire place fell silent again. The onlookers looked at Duan Ling Tian as though they had seen a ghost. Was this fellow crazy? How dare he provoke the three people from the Wandering Saint Palace at this moment? Earlier, someone had called the three people from the Wandering Saint Palace cats and dogs. They were furious, but since they could not find the culprit, they had no choice but to let the matter rest. Now, Duan Ling Tian had called the three people from the Wandering Saint Palace cats and dogs in front of everyone. The onlookers were impressed by Duan Ling Tian's courage, but at the same time, they felt he was digging his own grave. Brother Ling Tian. Huang Qi-ling, who was stunned by Duan Ling Tian's sudden action, also regained his senses at this moment. His expression changed drastically. He knew the three disciples from the Wandering Saint Palace very well. They would definitely not let Duan Ling Tian's provocation go. As expected, as soon as Huang Qi-ling's expression changed drastically, the three disciples from the Wandering Saint Palace who came from powerful backgrounds regained their senses as well. Brat, you're seeking death. You're seeking death. You're seeking death. The three disciples from the Wandering Saint Palace roared furiously when their expressions changed. Following that, they immediately made their move. As they stirred up gusts of wind, they charged toward Duan Ling Tian at the speed of sound. One powerhouse at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial Stage and two powerhouses at the fourth form of the Saint Celestial Stage unleashed their full strength. Three energies of different colors charged toward Duan Ling Tian in a ferocious manner. It was as though they would not rest until they killed Duan Ling Tian. One of the energies came from a 7-foot-long spear that contained a vast amount of saint origin. With a swing of the spear, it whistled through the air as though it could pierce through anything. Bang! Bang! The other burst of power came from the other person's fists. Saint Qi filled his gloves as he punched out with both fists, sending out two terrifying bursts of power that seemed to transform into two roaring dragons. The last wave of power came from the broadsword in the last person's hand. The broadsword swept out horizontally, bringing along gusts of wind. The broadsword light was intricate and complicated. It seemed extremely chaotic, but in reality, there was a profound principle hidden within. Its power was unparalleled. Brother Ling Tian, be careful. Huang Qi-ling's face changed greatly as he hurriedly reminded him. However, when he hurriedly reminded Duan Ling Tian, it was already too late for him to rescue Duan Ling Tian. This was because his current strength was weaker than the three of them, so it was impossible for him to catch up with their speed. I'd like to see, who's the one courting death? Duan Ling Tian's eyes turned cold when he saw the three men charging at him menacingly. The Sun Saint origin in his body began to boil before it surged out of his body through his 99 saint veins and gathered on his right hand. In the next moment, Duan Ling Tian raised his hand and pointed his finger. The sound of a sword whistling in the air rang in the air as a sharp sword ray shot out from the tip of Duan Ling Tian's finger. When the sword light cut through the sky, it was like a shooting star in the night sky, flashing and disappearing. In just a blink of an eye, the sword Qi was like a death god's scythe as it easily destroyed the attack of one of the disciples from the wandering Saint Palace and killed him in just a blink of an eye. The sword ray pierced through the space between his eyebrows, causing blood to splatter everywhere. At the same time, his soul was destroyed. A disciple at the fourth form of the Saint's celestial stage from the wandering Saint Palace was dead. Everyone present on the scene only managed to regain their senses when the disciple from the wandering Saint Palace was killed. An expression of shock and disbelief appeared on their faces. Even Huang Qiling was dumbfounded at this moment. Brother Ling Tian was actually so valiant. What shocked Huang Qiling and the others present on the scene even more was swoosh. After killing the first disciple from the wandering Saint Palace, the sword ray that shot out from the tip of Duan Lingtian's finger reverberated in the air again. In the next moment, they saw another disciple at the fourth form of the Saint's celestial stage had died as well. In just a blink of an eye, only one of the 3 disciples from the wandering Saint Palace was left alive. Although the remaining disciple from the wandering Saint Palace was at the 5th form of the Saint's celestial stage, he was still alive. However, when he saw Duan Lingtian killing 2 disciples at the 4th form of the Saint's celestial stage without using any saint weapons, his expression changed drastically. How's this possible? At this moment, he did not feel safe because his cultivation base had broken through to the 5th form of the Saint's celestial stage. Instead, he felt a sense of danger. Swoosh! The short-lived sword ray reverberated in the air again. Everyone's eyes widened when they heard the sound. Their hearts were in turmoil. It's not over yet. The sword ray that appeared for a brief moment continued to fly toward the disciple from the wandering Saint Palace at the 5th form of the Saint's celestial stage. Naturally, the disciple from the wandering Saint Palace who was at the 5th form of the Saint's celestial stage could not see the sword ray coming at him because it was too fast. Just the sound of the sword whistling through the air was enough to send chills down his spine. The disciple from the wandering Saint Palace at the 5th form of the Saint's celestial stage cried out in despair as his expression changed drastically. At this moment he was certain he was going to die. This was because the sword light that was charging at him was simply too fast. Moreover, it seemed to have locked onto him, causing him to have a feeling that he had nowhere to run. It even caused him to be unable to raise any thoughts of fleeing. Most importantly, he felt as though his body was filled with lead. He could not move at all. Naturally, it was not Duan Lingtian's doing. It was his own problem. Just as the sword ray from Duan Lingtian's son Saint Origin was about to kill the disciple from the wandering Saint Palace at the 5th form of the Saint's celestial stage, swoosh, 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 swoosh. The sound of the sword whistling through the air rang in the air as a rain of swords rained down on the disciple from the wandering Saint Palace at the 5th form of the Saint's celestial stage. At the same time, it also blocked the sword ray that came from Duan Lingtian. The rain of swords fell, directly mincing that sword light into pieces. The disciple from the wandering Saint Palace at the 5th form of the Saint's celestial stage managed to escape with his life. Who's there? Duan Lingtian's expression changed immediately as he looked up at the sky. There was a figure standing there. Moreover, the rain of swords from before had come from this figure. When Duan Lingtian looked up at the sky, everyone's eyes followed Duan Lingtian's gaze and landed on the figure in the sky. This was a woman in a robe whiter than snow. She stood there, her long hair cascading down like a waterfall. Although it was only her back, she still emitted waves of cold aura, as if she was 1,000 miles away from others. Sister Wenjing. Huang Qiling's eyes widened when he saw the woman in the sky. He quickly bowed respectfully at her. Sister Wenjing? The disciple from the wandering Saint Palace at the 5th form of the Saint's celestial stage who was almost killed by Duan Lingtian regained his senses when he heard Huang Qiling's voice. He looked at the woman who had saved him. The moment he saw the woman, the fear in his eyes disappeared and was replaced with joy and excitement. However, in the next moment, his expression darkened again. Sister Wenjing, you must avenge Qi Gang and Yu Ji. The disciple from the Wandering Saint Palace at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial Stage pointed at Duan Lingtian and said angrily, "He's the one who killed Qi Gang and Tuyu." Lin Qi Gang and Sidiu Ji were the two disciples at the fourth form of the Saint Celestial Stage who were killed by Duan Lingtian. He's also Huang Qiling's friend. Huang Qiling is trying to rebel by colluding with outsiders to kill our disciples. He looked at Huang Qiling when he reached the end of his sentence. While the disciple from the Wandering Saint Palace at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial Stage was complaining, many of the onlookers recognized the white-clad woman in the sky. It's Huang Wenjing. Although they could only see the white-clad woman's back, many people still recognized her. Huang Wenjing? When someone recognized the white-clad woman and said her name, an uproar broke out among the onlookers. Huang Wenjing was no stranger to the people present on the scene. Huang Wenjing was a famous prodigy in the Human Devil clan. She was also the #1 prodigy among the younger generation in the Wandering Saint Palace. Her cultivation base had already broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial Stage. Rumor had it that her cultivation base was close to breaking through to the 8th form of the Saint Celestial Stage. Apart from her monstrous innate talent and strength, Huang Wenjing also had a title that no one could compete with. She was the most beautiful woman in the Human Devil clan. She's Huang Wenjing? The most beautiful woman in the Human Devil clan and the #1 prodigy among the younger generation in the Wandering Saint Palace? The eyes of the Human Devils lit up when they heard Huang Wenjing's name. The male Human Devils, in particular, had a burning desire in their eyes when they looked at Huang Wenjing's back. At this moment, the instinctive reaction of a man could be seen clearly. However, they quickly averted their gazes. This was because when they looked at the cold figure in the sky, a cold aura was emitting from the figure. Above the ice-cold figure, an aura that made one feel as though winter had arrived swept out and enveloped their bodies, causing them to feel as though they had fallen into an ice cave. In just a blink of an eye, the desire in their hearts vanished. When they looked at the cold figure again, their eyes were filled with dread. They no longer dared to act rashly. "Sister Wenjing, don't listen to his nonsense." Huang Qiling's expression changed drastically when he saw the disciple from the Wandering Saint Palace at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial Stage trying to accuse him. He Sinjie, Lin Qigang, and Sidiu Ji wanted to kill Brother Ling Tian, so Brother Ling Tian killed them. Chapter 22-25. As soon as Huang Qiling finished speaking, "Humph." He Sinjie, the disciple at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial Stage, scoffed as he glared at Huang Qiling. "Huang Qiling, you're still defending an outsider at a time like this? Don't forget that Lin Qigang, Sidiu Ji, and I are all from the Wandering Saint Palace. How dare you side with an outsider?" A hint of pride could be seen in He Sinjie's eyes when he spoke. "Sister Wenjing." When He Sinjie looked at the cold figure in the sky again, his expression turned grim. He said with a tearful expression, "You're the leader of the younger generation in the Wandering Saint Palace. You must avenge Lin Qigang and Yu Ji." Although He Sinjie's face was mournful, his eyes were shining with the luster of a successful scheme. Huang Qiling's expression darkened when he heard He Sinjie's words. "Enough." A melodious voice that sounded like an oriole's voice rang in the air. Everyone felt as though they were in a world of ice and snow. The voice came from the back of the snow-white figure high up in the sky. As soon as the figure finished speaking, she slowly turned around and revealed her face. A beautiful face that seemed to have been carefully sculpted appeared in front of everyone's eyes, causing everyone's breathing to stop at this moment. Beautiful. Too beautiful. Everyone, including Duan Ling Tian, could not help but have the same thought when they saw the woman in snow-white clothes and her face that was so beautiful that it could cause the downfall of a nation. Duan Ling Tian, in particular, was deeply affected by the woman's beauty. After all, his wives, Ke, Li Fei, and his lover, Feng Tianwu, were all top-tier beauties. However, the woman in front of him was not inferior to Ke, Li Fei, or Feng Tianwu in terms of beauty, especially the cold temperament that kept people thousands of miles away from her. For ordinary men, They could only keep their distance. However, for a confident man, he would involuntarily have the desire to conquer her. Just like Duan Lingtian, this desire arose in an instant. This was his subconscious desire as a confident man. It wasn't that he wasn't faithful. Just as his desire rose, Duan Lingtian thought of his two wives. For a moment, it was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head, completely waking him up. She's Huang Wenjing? The number one beauty of the human demon clan? He truly lives up to his reputation. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but praise the lady in white when he looked at her again. Soon, Duan Lingtian discovered something else. The most beautiful woman of the human devil clan was actually looking at him. How dare you kill the people from the wandering Saint Palace? Huang Wenjing looked at Duan Lingtian with a calm expression. Her tone was calm as well. It was impossible to detect any strange emotions in her voice. Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow and was about to say something when Huang Wenjing suddenly spoke up. Sister Wenjing. Huang Qiling stepped forward and looked at Huang Wenjing solemnly. Everyone here is a witness to what happened today. If he Sun Jie and the other two didn't make a move first, Brother Lingtian wouldn't have been able to touch them. What? Are you going to protect him? Huang Wenjing's expression was still calm. It was impossible to tell if she was happy or angry. However, everyone present on the scene could clearly feel her aura turning colder. Huang Qiling's expression turned solemn as he said solemnly, "Today's incident happened because of me. If it weren't for me, Brother Lingtian wouldn't have gotten involved in this. In that case, you can go to the enforcement hall to receive your punishment when you return to the palace." Huang Wenjing's gaze turned cold. An even colder aura swept out from her body and enveloped Huang Qiling. Huang Qiling's body seemed to have been frozen into ice in an instant, becoming much stiffer. Yes. Huang Qiling replied in a trembling voice after trembling for a while. At this moment he felt as though he was in a world of ice and snow. His body was so stiff that he could not even speak properly. Sister Wenjing. Sun Jie's expression changed drastically when he saw Huang Wenjing had no intention of attacking Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian scoffed as soon as Sun Jie spoke. He looked at Huang Wenjing calmly and said indifferently, "It's my business to kill Duan Lingnan. What does it have to do with anyone else? I, Duan Lingtian, killed someone. If you have the ability, you can capture me and bring me back to the Wandering Saint Palace to receive your punishment." Although Duan Lingtian's tone was calm, it sounded like a provocation to Huang Wenjing. For a moment, Huang Wenjing's originally somewhat cold face seemed to be covered with a thick layer of frost. "Brother Lingtian." Huang Qiling's eyes widened when he heard Duan Lingtian's words and saw the expression on Huang Wenjing's face. Sun Jie, on the other hand, had a gloating expression on his face. Huang Qiling had already decided to take the blame for this guy, but not only did he not appreciate it, but he even provoked Huang Wenjing with his words. This guy is digging his own grave. Digging his own grave? Maybe he's not afraid of Huang Wenjing at all? I don't think so. He doesn't seem old. I've never heard of such a young powerhouse in the human devil clan. When the onlookers saw Duan Lingtian acting this way, they felt Duan Lingtian was asking for it. Since you want me to capture you, I'll do as you wish. As the number one genius among the younger generation in the Wandering Saint Palace, Huang Wenjing had her own pride even though she was a woman. After being provoked to such an extent in front of so many people today, she naturally couldn't tolerate it. Swoosh! Huang Wenjing's figure swayed and left behind a shadow on the spot. Then she quickly disappeared without a trace. Swoosh! 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 As soon as Huang Wenjing's figure disappeared, the sound of swords whistling in the air rang in the air. Along with the sound of swords whistling in the air was a dense rain of swords. The rain of swords soared through the sky and charged menacingly towards Duan Lingtian. Above the rain of swords, Huang Wenjing stepped on one of the sword rays and charged toward Duan Lingtian along with the rain of swords. She looked like a female sword celestial who was flying on her sword. In just a blink of an eye, she killed her enemies who were thousands of miles away. 1,000 inscriptions Saint's sword? In just a blink of an eye, Duan Ling Tian recognized the sword ray beneath Huang Wenjing's feet. It was 1,000 inscriptions Saint's sword. When she wielded the sword, it shone like lightning. As for the rain of swords that was charging toward him, it was a combination of divine ability and martial tactics. The rain of swords carried with it the power to devour mountains and rivers. It seemed as though it could drown everything in its path. Elementary devouring tactic. Duan Lingtian did not dare to be careless in the face of the ferocious Huang Wenjing. He instantly cast his assist-type divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic. In just a blink of an eye, a whirlpool appeared with Duan Lingtian in the center. As soon as the whirlpool appeared, the heaven and earth spirit energy in the surroundings was absorbed by Duan Lingtian and turned into a part of the Sun Saint origin in his body. The Sun Saint origin in his body rapidly rose to its peak. Golden Crow's wings. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian cast his movement divine ability. A pair of flaming wings appeared on his back, stirring up a scorching wind. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Huang Wenjing stepped on the rain of swords as she charged toward Duan Lingtian. Her speed was as fast as a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint's celestial stage. Duan Lingtian's expression turned solemn when he saw Huang Wenjing. Huang Wenjing was definitely the strongest powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint's celestial stage he had ever encountered. If he had the celestial supreme treasure, the Jasper celestial sword, he would not be afraid of Huang Wenjing at all. However, he had no choice but to be cautious now. Otherworldly celestial. With just a thought, Duan Lingtian cast his offensive divine ability, the otherworldly celestial, and created several clones. Clones. Many of the onlookers shook their heads when they saw Duan Lingtian creating clones. They did not think Duan Lingtian's move would be effective. No matter how many clones there were, they would be drowned by the rain of swords. However, they were unaware that Duan Lingtian's divine ability was not weak at all. Duan Lingtian's trump card was not the otherworldly celestial but the supreme sword Dao mental cultivation method, the Sovereign Heart Sword. After casting the divine ability, the otherworldly celestial, and activating the supreme sword Dao mental cultivation method, the Sovereign Heart Sword. In just a blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian extended his divine consciousness again. It was as though he was the ruler of the Sword Dao world. After a while, Duan Lingtian's divine consciousness shrouded Huang Wenjing, who was charging toward him while stepping on the rain of swords. He could clearly sense the power of the rain of swords and the profundities contained within it. I see. In just a blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian discovered Huang Wenjing's flaw. In fact, this flaw was not obvious. Even a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint's celestial stage would not be able to discover it. This flaw was due to the fusion of Huang Wenjing's sword martial tactic and divine ability. The two seemed to have merged together perfectly, but there were quite a few flaws mixed together. It was just that it was difficult to discover and detect. And now, this flaw had been discovered by Duan Lingtian. Before Duan Lingtian's supreme sword Dao mental cultivation method, the Sovereign Heart Sword, he would be able to find any sword martial tactic in the mundane realm unless it was flawless. It's much easier now that there's a flaw. Duan Lingtian was excited when he discovered Huang Wenjing's flaw. It was as if he had been injected with chicken blood, and he became excited in an instant. Meanwhile, Huang Wenjing had already arrived near Duan Lingtian while riding on the rain of swords. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.